What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the LPL. We have another banger playoff matchup coming at you. So we're in the Split 3 playoffs, and well, K-Man, we are witnessing something very, very odd. We're witnessing anyone's legend who are just looking all out of sorts, but today they have an opportunity to move on and to end the playoff hopes and the hopes of getting to Worlds of NiP.
This is a big one, Yanni. I am very, very excited to be here. We've got our defending champions looking to, continue to bounce back and to try to find some confidence and some form at the end of the year. And for Ninjas in Pajamas, this is everything. This is their final shot. This could be their final series of the year. Gotta leave it all on the rift here today.
Right you are, my friend. Let's take a look at this playoff bracket so we can see what the heck we've had going on, all the craziness. Last night, JDG beat out EDG 3-2. Got a little spicy there. I thought that EDG maybe could have pulled that one out, and that would have been really an incredible upset. But if anyone's legend are able to get this done, that will be the end of our Group Nirvana teams, and we'll be all ascend from here on out.
It was so close yesterday to having a gigantic upset, a real dagger through the heart of the lower bracket here in the LPL, but we still have a lot of interesting matchups we saw on that bracket as well. Invictus Gaming, in round number 2, awaiting the winner of today's series. There are so many teams that are competitive in the LPL that can, go toe-to-toe with anybody. It really increases the stakes a lot, and that is certainly true here today.
Yeah, no doubt. And, let's start taking a look at the teams today. AL, as we said, once a team to fear, but since the start of Split 3, they've been a little weird. But they're still the same team that a lot of us know and have been to these internationals and have done quite well for themselves. Flandra, Tarzan, Shanks, Hope, and Kyle. And, it's just everybody, man. Hope and Shanks have been really inconsistent. Kyle's and Gages have had timing and issues. Tarzan is putting the team in bad spots. The only one who is still performing at a consistent level is pretty much Flandra.
Every single game at this point with the Scion and the Ornn, but he does that job at a really high level. The problem for AL has just been that mid-game consistency. You pointed it out. It's them constantly being put in bad positions, not by the opponents, but by themselves, like pushing too far forward, and players like Tarzan and Kyle linking up almost too much, sacrificing resources in areas that need those resources. It's really just about simplifying the game back down to being able to outperform your opponent rather than feeling like you have to outplay and outmaneuver them every single game.
Yeah, and I think the coin flip nature of how the team has been is really personified by Shanks in the mid lane, who in the last series that we saw anyone's legend performed pretty well at times and pretty poorly in others. His Orianna and his Kassadin game were absolutely phenomenal, but there's some other games that on that Galio, on that Victor, that just didn't quite hit the mark.
Yeah, if you tuned in for Game 1 and Game 4, you were probably like, man, this Shanks guy, he's like really back into form. We're looking at the player that was cruising through the playoffs in the spring split. If you tuned into Games 2 and 3, you were wondering what was going on in the mid lane there, because it was not pretty. And that's really the duality that kind of encapsulates AL right now, is the fact that on any given day in any game, they can either look like they can take over any fight and position really well, as you can see with Shanks on the Kassadin just being able to blow through the entirety of Weibo Gaming, or you can see, the entire team down 1,000 gold at 10 minutes without any pressure on the map. It really is just up to whether or not they individually show up on the day and in the game itself.
Positioning, love that you called that out, because you'll see these next couple of clips. This is just like, this is maybe the fault of Tarzan too, but he ults the dodge, then he flashes like to the side to try to spring Shanks in there, but Shanks clearly wanted to back at the beginning of this play, and then obviously the entire team is all out of sorts here. But the positioning of Shanks is just way too far up. It seems like he's just not on the same page with these guys. It's just not great.
Yeah, I think that is fair to say. I think you can talk about his positioning being a true negative for the team, especially in this Victor game. I think this is where it was the most exploitable, where you were seeing him walk up and play really aggro. It's why, honestly, I really liked the transition to something like Kassadin. If he's going to position like this, you might as well give him a champ that can do something with it. But if this team wants to live up to their own expectations of being the best team in the LPL, the defending champions, the ones that have performed the best throughout the entire year for the region, Shanks has to start getting more consistent with how he plays these front to backs. It's not just, being down in gold that ends up causing AL problems. They are inconsistent in every aspect of the game.
Yeah, and remember here that a loss will put them in the regional gauntlet. I'm 99% sure. So this is like, I don't know if you want to go there, right? If you're playing like this, sure, you would get more games to try to fix your problems, but I'm sure you'd rather like try to fix your problems at Worlds than potentially not even go to Worlds, man. I don't know about you, but I am all about the Worlds appearances.
Look, I mean, you're fighting for spots against potentially like a Weibo Gaming, who just beat you in a best of 5, a Billy Gaming, who has now, pushed themselves forward, perhaps even Invictus, who is a really talented team. You don't want to be in that cluster, especially a team that, their expectations going into the year. If AL were told like, hey, you will have a chance to get in through the regional qualifier with their championship points, they would have considered that a huge problem. And so you see now in front of you the path, the difficult challenge that AL has ahead of them. We talk about ninjas in pajamas here today. It certainly does not get easier after today, even if they are able to pick up a win.
Not at all. I mean, that's a huge hurdle to try to get over against IG in an elimination series. I mean, we know that how well IG has played in Split 3, really considered a favorite. I think that there was a lot of talk of BLG's victory over them being a bit of an upset with the way that both of these teams have played. And, they were pretty much, consensus 2 and 3 with, IG at times kind of gunning after that number 1 spot. And with the way that AL's at, I mean, if they don't rebound to their former glory, they're not going to touch the Silver Dragon Cup.
And that's what makes it so important for them to show up today specifically. They don't need to just win this series. They need to prove that they can be that dominant team that we know they can be from a mechanical and from a macro standpoint, because, squeaking by ninjas in pajamas is not good enough for the aspirations that this org has established for themselves throughout this year. And this might be the last time they get the chance to continue that level up without dire consequences here in the playoffs.
And speaking of NiP, they're the team that they're playing against. Surprise! You can see it at the bottom, and you can see it in the rosters here. It's Solo Kill, Nayo, Doinb, Leave, and Niket. Remember, this could be the last time that we see NiP in 2025. It is a true do-or-die scenario for them. If they lose, they're out. They can't make the regional finals, and their key pieces need to play much better than they did against Top Esports.
I think that is definitely the storyline here. Is we watched them against TES, and we watched a team that, while they were attempting to make plays, and you could look at individual players that might have been, doing all right for themselves, the overall performance of Ninjas in Pajamas was very lackluster. And maybe you're comparing that to like, oh, well, they did well for a Nirvana team. This team is not looking at, themselves as a group Nirvana team. This is a team that truly does believe they can compete with the upper echelon, and this could be their last chance to prove it.
They've played so well, at least throughout Group Ascend or Nirvana, that I almost wish they were in Ascend for a little bit, because I kind of wanted to see them, near playing against these teams that were at the bottom, right? Remember, they were essentially a farm team in Split 2. They were just getting farmed by everybody. So, with the changes they made, it seemed like they worked out pretty well. They looked a lot stronger, a lot cleaner. And one of the guys that was a big reason for that was Niket, but Niket in the last series against Top Esports, like we were just alluding to, it did not perform very well, and it hurt my heart because I'm gonna at least support Aficionado.
Yeah, it really wasn't pretty for Niket. There were many plays throughout multiple games of this series where he was either too far forward or too far behind in terms of where his team's engages were. Didn't really feel like he had a great sense of the game state overall. He had some terrible laning moments and decisions. He had good moments as well. We can see a good team fight here. And, this was an Elise game that was basically doomed from level 1, and he still managed to pull back a bit of gold, as we can see in a couple of these highlights. But it's those small mistakes that really did end up costing Niket. And you have to remember, this is a player, this is the biggest test that he has ever had as a player at the tier 1 level. He has never been on a team with the expectations of NiP and the main playoffs proper. It can be quite nerve-wracking to be in a position like this with your back up against the wall. He'll need to be better today, or at the very least, a bit more consistent for NiP to reach their goals.
Yeah, and he's still, when you think about it, a very young player in terms of playing competitive in tier 1. I mean, he had the summer with Ultra Prime last year, which was very good, and he seemed to be a building block that a lot of teams were interested in. And then he goes and he's with RNG at the start of the year. We all know what happened with them, and now catching on with NiP, at least he's gotten his first full year in. And again, we have seen really good moments, specifically on his engaged champions, but we're still waiting for him to make some of these picks really his own, and that at least was not it.
I think it's all really just coming back to comfort with Niket. You can see all of these great stats up on your screen. He's 3rd in average assists per game, 4th in KP percentage, like 5th in goal difference of 15 for supports. Like, he is generating resources, but so much of that comes against talent that he can outskill. I think the question is, can Niket be the kind of player that can continue to grow and evolve, where when he's going up against some of the best supports in the world, like he is in this matchup against Kyle, if you can't win that 2v2 early, if you can't dominate it, can you still be just as useful? We'll have to see here today if he can live up to that promise.
Not only that, one other thing that we need to keep track of is how some of our friends are doing, because we saw the other day when AL was playing that a couple of our casters were not very panicked. But then I gotta say, K-Man, things might be a little bit different now, because if you're still not as panicked, if you're Slayer, or even where Cubby's at right now, I would be off the charts for these guys. I'm pretty firmly on like the second to last notch on the panic meter. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you, Yanni. I think I'm looking at a team right now for AL that isn't just struggling. They are struggling in ways that have become repeatable for them. It's not, oh, they've just underperformed on, given days in certain situations. They're making the same mistakes over and over again, and they're not getting better in that regard. If they don't, start growing and start to figure out where some of these mid-game problems are coming from, it goes from, all right, I'm a little bit worried. You still have the regional qualifier at the worst to get to Worlds, to, okay, you're in the regional qualifier. Are you even better than Weibo? Are you even better than, Invictus? Like, who you're going to be going up against? That becomes a real question for AL if they don't improve.
Yeah, we thought that they firmly were, right? And at least in Split 2 they were, but obviously we live in a much different world here in Split 3 than we did in Split 2. Now it's time to talk predictions, K-Man. I don't know about you. I have anyone's Legends taking this one 3-2. I think it's going to be really close. I think that NiP played Top Esports really hard, could have forced a 5th game, and simply put, AL is just not on the same level as Top Esports right now.
I agree with you that looking at the tape of these two teams from round number
Hang on.
1.
You agree with me,
let
but...
me finish.
Yeah, you got to justify this, bro.
I agree with you in that if you look at the tape from round number 1, you will see an AL team that is really struggling and an NiP team that I think, has the firepower to compete. I think AL is going to be pretty motivated here today to strike back. I think they were embarrassed in round number 1 by Weibo. I think this team has a lot of players that play relatively emotionally, and I think they're going to come out firing. I predicted 3-0 for AL. I think anything less than a 3-1 for them is going to be concerning for me. That's when the panic meter gets even worse. If you're not dominating this series, that is an underperformance from them.
Couldn't agree more with you, K-Man. As you can see, we have a couple of NiP voters. Our producer, Rare Adam, we got Rafa, and all the way over. Listen, Alk Battery is this man is an enigma. I have no idea what's going through this guy's head most of the time. All I know is it's usually memey or funny. I have no idea what his actual feelings are on this series, if it's actually gonna be a 3-0, but you know what? This guy, most of the time, means what he says and says what he means, but
I can tell
know.
you exactly what's going through his head, and that's that Leave is going to carry this series, that Leave is going to punch NiP to round number 2. I'm not quite sure I agree with that, but I certainly love the confidence.
So you can see we have some of our walkouts here, and okay, man, we haven't really set up a matchup to watch or anything like that. And I think that what's really interesting is I don't think we more so have matchups to watch, but players to watch. The two guys that I'm looking for on either side, Shanks needs to be better. We talked about that a little bit earlier, but he's just been near unplayable in some of his losses. Down the stretch, as the year gets on, like Darren in summer, he tends to not play as well up to his standards. And then on the other side, Niket, right? That the game 4 at least gives me nightmares. These are two roles that across the LPL have been pretty weak. I think we've had conversations about when it comes to all pro voting, leaving abstain votes for mid lane and for support. Because these roles are so weak, these guys do have opportunity to rise up and have an individual series where they're playing like some of the best in the LPL.
Absolutely. I think that that's very well put. I think both of these players have the opportunity to cement themselves in this series, not only because of the competition, but because of the roles and the way that they, function in general, where you're looking at Niket, playing these engage supports. If you get the right engages, it's going to work. If you're playing Orianna and you can take over the game as Shanks and get an early lead, it's going to work. You have the opportunities. It's all really going to be about the setup and whether or not they can execute here today.
All right. I think we're getting ready. I'm excited, K-Man. All right, so a couple of shouts that we have to have for some of these guys. When it comes to draft, I mean, Aurora is such a big pick for anyone's legend. I'm interested to see if NiP is going to take it away from them by picking it or just constantly banning it. I think Flandra has only lost one game on it. Shanks has only lost one game on it. I think they're like 15-2 or something ridiculous on this champion. Flandra's got 9 wins with it. I think Shanks is hovering around 6. I mean, listen, call stats fake or whatever you want when there's a champ on the other side that could be played top or mid. I don't care that she's just got a little bit of a nerf. You gotta get it out of there.
I agree. And it's not just a pick that they've succeeded on domestically. They went to MSI, and this looked like their best pick there as well. So it certainly is something that I would be watching out for. If there is a draft note to make, and I made this point very clear in the previous series with Top Esports and Ninjas in Pajamas, if there's one draft point that I need to make sure is hammered home, do not give Doingby Rise. You cannot let that happen if you're anyone's legend. That is a nightmare scenario. This champion had a 91% ban rate against Ninjas in Pajamas in the spring split. It's dropped off in priority, and it's really been to the detriment of a lot of teams across summer, and we'll have to see if AL make that same mistake here.
Well, the good news for AL is that Shanks is quite good on it, right? So the priority on that Rise is going to be pretty curious in this series. I assume this is going to maybe be an early pick. Maybe just kind of get it out of the way early. I'm totally fine with that. If you want to do that as AL, I'm not quite sure what that's going to mean for the bans or anything like that, if you're just going to go eat it or not. And it looks like AL is going to be starting out on the red side, and that first ban immediately going to be the Rise, and you can see they're already targeting these OMB champions.
The macro threats, the Rise, the Galio. If we see a Talia ban here, you'll know the strategy. You'll know the game plan coming in, which is no globals, please. We do not want to give Doingby that kind of agency. For now, it's definitely the champions that you consider to be the most effective. The Pantheon very much also in that style.
No globals.
Especially for someone like, no globals. We're not allowing that today. Not for Nio, not for Doingby, not for anybody, but the Yunara, something that we do often see banned out, either on red or blue side here in the first rotation, is left up for leave. Somebody who has been very successful on hyper carries gets a pretty good one here in game 1.
And remember that Yunara generally has been pretty good with either engaged champions or enchanters. Starting to see that with enchanters, she's starting to see more of her success, but you can really pick either. I'm curious to see if anyone's legend decide to bite the bullet early and try to take some point and click to make this Yunara's life hard. Obviously, when she transcends, she can dash away, but AL say, we're just going to go with the Jarvan anyway.
I think they're setting up for the Rage Cage here. The Jarvan and the Rumble dropped here. Yes, the Hot Pot. I think that the Orianna could be coming through as well, but it's the early Kiana getting locked in here for Nio. We've been pretty specific about NiP's strategy for these games. It's leave on a hyper carry. It's Nio on a damage carry in the jungle that can skirmish. They're definitely leaning into that in game number 1. It will be Doingby's Annie as well for even more setup. Orianna, like I said, makes a ton of sense to finish this wombo. Both teams basically picking exactly what we expected them to here.
Yeah, they are firing all the bullets out of their chamber early on. And now it's time to look at the second half of bans. The support pool is going to be heavily targeted out here, K-Man. I am curious to see if NiP elects to aim some bans over on the side of Hope, because there are some of his signature champions that he is so good at. I love this Cassante ban because it has been one of Nayo's best, Solo Kill's best champions. And, you know, it takes their need for a tank and kind of pinches that a little bit more.
And I think specifically, like, when you look at the Rumble nerfs that are actually live on this patch that we're playing on, a lot of the problems that Rumble is running into now are against tanks. Those are really the matchups where he has gotten a lot worse in. So things like Asante, Sion, Ornn, it makes sense to try to take these matchups away. It will be the Ambessa, so, you know, these more combat-oriented kind of bruisers on the top side. You just don't want to have to get into those kinds of duels. If you're Rumble, you want to be able to survive into that late game. Any sort of agency can be taken off the Rift, but it is the Sivir. Kind of a standard counter to a lot of the hyper carries. We've seen it as the easy answer to Varus. Yunara, obviously, also not the easiest matchup for Yunara, and we see the Varus actually taken away here as well. It does leave up quite a few options in the AD carry role. Corki would certainly be one of them. Kai'Sa would fit this dive, though, if they really wanted to go aggressive, and Hope is certainly good at it.
A couple of really good options here. It looks like they want to get at least a little bit more engaging out of the support roles, so obviously being a little bit careful with your picks and making sure you have some sort of escape, I think, will be important. Gonna lock in the Corki for some of this early damage, so the door is still open on what Kyle wants to do, as AL has been so good with most of the year. They're going to give him that R5 counter pick.
Yeah, we'll see what he wants to go for. I think a lot of the thought process is going to be, well, what can we do to enable this Orianna to be able to push forward as much as we can? In the mid game, we know that Tarzan and Kyle have linked up a lot over the course of this split. It's really been a hallmark of AL. I think that will continue with this support pick, but it will be the Nico locked in. Even more playmaking from NiP. Things can get dangerous really fast, and as I said, those tanks, kind of a superior matchup now into Rumble. It's going to be the Ornn that's opted into here by Solo Kill rather than the Sion. He's found a ton of success on both of those champions, but it is going to be, at the very least, no Sion here in game number 1. I wanted to see some movement out on the map from Kyle. I wanted to see something that can play alongside Tarzan and Shanks, and it's exactly what we're going to get with the Bard here.
Yeah, it doesn't really play well in the lane, but I think you're all right with that given the fact that you're going up against the double range bot lane. It's going to be really difficult for Corki to kind of make any hay in that lane, so go ahead and move around the map, make plays like Kyle's been so good at. I think this is also a fantastic pick given the fact that the Tempered Fate can really shut down Yunara, can really shut down Qiyana. If you happen to catch either of those champions, it's so much power out of NiP that gets removed. K-Man, I think the name of the game for AL is just hang out till you hit level 6 and then start fighting around these objectives. But yeah, must be careful. If you walk up too close to this Annie, to this Qiyana, you're going to get burnt bad.
It is going to be up to NiP in game number 1 to be proactive, to be constantly looking for those engages with that mid-jungle duo. If you can get them out on the map, really moving. You have so many engage tools, even late game with the Nico and the Ornn ultimates coming in as well to set up for that Yunara. But the raw damage and the Wombo combo from anyone's Legend, you start getting into these close quarters, 5v5 team fights, it's terrifying. I think both teams got exactly what they wanted in game 1. Now it's just going to come down to who plays it better.
We saw Java and Tabe do their bow, take their fist bump, and walk their separate ways as their teams are set. I have to wonder if there's any regret going through the mind of those guys with the comps that they've drafted, but these teams have had a lot of success this year, and a lot of part of that is because of these coaches. You can see the skin line up, and you know what that means, K-Man? That means that we are about to get into game. Summoner's Rift, game 1 of this best of 5 series. Anyone's Legends, NiP, let's do it. So, K-Man, I think that we know that when AL is at their best, they are using the rest of the pressure that they get from their lanes to really enable Tarzan to move around and be aggressive. And I think that is so important to do to Nio in this game, to really disrupt him and try to do what you can to set him behind and take the power out of this assassin threat.
Absolutely. If you can get this Qiyana behind, especially, you know, in the mid game around like Grubs or even, you know, the Herald fight on that top side, if you can get this Qiyana in a bad spot, it's really bad for Nio, and you can see that here with the invade.
Oh, he got stunned too. This is so rough for him. Just losing any amount of HP makes life really difficult in the jungle. He will be able to at least grab his chickens, but Tarzan will walk away with the true prize of that red buff. And because he's on a ward, Tarzan's going to shove him off too. And yeah, these chickens are going to reset. He could not get it. Oh,
it is
brutal.
Worst case scenario as we see a trade going down on the bot side. NiP absolutely need to try to capitalize and push out Hope and Kyle for getting to lane late here, but we just said it. Like, if this Qiyana gets behind, it becomes very difficult to play out for Nio. And Qiyana's not just behind, Qiyana is in a terrible spot, and that's where a lot of your power spikes come in mid-game. Puts even more responsibility on these solo laners to start stepping up, so see how they can fare, but certainly a good start for AL.
Yeah, Qiyana definitely in the sunken place right now. You saw the ping on the top side jungle. It looks like Tarzan's going to head over to his top side and make sure that Nio is unable to grab anything more. He'll be homeless for a little bit, and based on the lane states and really how the champion operates, I don't think he's going to have too much opportunity to actually make an impact anywhere.
Yeah, this is a really bad spot for Nio on this Qiyana. It's going to be difficult to be able to rebound. The only hope here is that your lanes should be in okay spots on their own. I think the only one that you're even a bit concerned about could potentially be top lane, but that's only really if the Ornn ends up mispositioning. Everything else, I think you're expecting your laners to have priority. So as long as you can still play around your primary, you know, laners and maybe even get an invade like this off, you can play, but this is very risky from Nio.
All right, Tarzan spots this out. Looks like he's going to finish up his red buff. He's got that smite. He's going to use it now. He's going to head over to Nio. Nio will be able to at least take the big chicken away. But this trade is not equal, K-Man, as Nio's still going to be missing out on quite a bit. Now we're going to see a fight for the top grab, but Nio knows he can't do it.
Yeah, there's no fight to be had. It's just Tarzan walking up and saying, well, I mean, you either fight me and lose, or you give me the crab and you lose. And there are no camps to even take on the bot side. Look at where Kyle is right now. He is shadowing and marking this Qiyana as well. They are not going to get vision on Nio. They are now with that heal placed in the brush. But
this
it's
is
double
brutal.
crab for Tarzan. It's 14 CS for Nio. This Qiyana is almost entirely sent out of this game.
Yeah, this is just so brutal to watch right now. And Cayman, I think you might... wait. Oh, okay. I thought he was going to wait for a potential respawn of the Raptors. It looks like he is. He's going to go for those respawn Raptors. And Nio's like, dude, get out of my jungle, please. We do see that Kyle is around. Niket is doing what he can to try to help out his jungler, but he's just not able to. The red buff, such a bigger impact in these fights than the blue buff. Smites away the chicken. And, dude, this is... I don't really know what to say, K-Man.
I mean, what you can say here is that we were asking for Tarzan to step up. We've been talking about how the consistency for this team has not been there. Well, this is Tarzan not just stepping up, but taking over the early game on this Jarvan. This really is a comfort comp for AL, and they have the scaling here. The moment they hit level 6, these fights become even more difficult for ninjas in pajamas. This is a great start, and despite the fact that the gold lead's not all that huge in this game, it certainly is very, very winnable. And as you can see, who knows if Nio is going to understand how to be able to get out of this, with this being his first ever career Qiyana game. He's going to have to try, though, because he's a big part of this comp.
K-Man, do you think it's going to be his last after this one? Like, you know, it's not like he's playing poorly. It's just like PTSD is a real thing. As the Dragon is going to get started up here by AL, they're going to do it on a pretty quick timer here. You know, really no fear of allowing NiP to get a soul. But given the fact that there's no scaling in this game, you want to use and leverage this early power. And if you can get these objectives before hitting 6 for free, it's just generally good for AL.
Absolutely. It's massive for AL to utilize this early lead. Right now, Flandre could be the target, though, of some opposite aggression. It'd be difficult. They don't really have the damage under the turret, even with the Nico here.
Oh, that's so brutal. It makes it so difficult. Flandra's going to soak up all this EXP. Now
here.
Doinb is going to get here, though. And Flandra is dangerously close to overheating. The flash, but it was a Q used by Doinb, and that means First Blood will go over to NiP.
Yeah, I mean, Nico dives are very consistent and very easy to execute. There was a way for Flandra to potentially outplay that, but the early flash ends up kind of sealing the deal. It's a very proactive play to get NiP back into this game. You need gold onto this Annie in order to stay proactive and even be able to play through the Yunara in the late game. So, you know, facilitating a dive with both Lieb and Doinb available is definitely the right call.
And definitely costing Flandra a lot there and missed out on a lot of EXP, even though he did still hit level 6. A little bit of gold as well. You can see he's starting to fight at a deficit right now. But overall, I think you're still okay if you're AL, just because the gold's not in your favor. The EXP definitely is. And Nio, once again, just being bullied so hard off these chickens.
I mean, this is a jungle clinic from Tarzan. This is exactly how you need to push a lot of these big early game leads. And let's give a lot of credit to Kyle as well for making these plays as simple as possible. Tarzan and Kyle have linked up a ton over the course of this year, but you can choke out a jungler early on in the game. It's pretty easy if you allow that jungler to get that catch-up XP for you to be able to, you know, get back in the game if you're Nio. So keeping this pressure up is so important.
It is brutal.
Oh, no.
This is so brutal, Cayman. And I think the worst part about it is it was just Kyle and Tarzan that were in that jungle. I mean, we saw Hope take a back. We saw Flandra just farming at the turret. I mean, like, there were 4 members of NiP on the bottom side, and they chose to not help out their jungle.
It's just such an awkward situation to find yourself in if you are ninjas in pajamas, because a lot of the lanes actually do have leads. This Yunara leave is getting stronger, and you want to feel like you can continue to push the game forward through that Yunara and through the Annie without sacrificing that lead. But if you don't help the Kiana, she's just out of the game, and now we're seeing even more skirmishing happen as the Grubs have spawned, and AL are certainly looking to take this as well.
Yeah, AL have hit their level 6 spikes. Save for Kyle. Doinb is hunting around here. He does have the Tibbers, as they're going to go flash onto Flandra here. Here comes the call of Forge God on top of it as well, and Solo Kill will be able to pick that one up. AL will be able to slide 1 Grub here. Big Shockwave lands onto 2. The Grubs are split at 1 apiece, and speaking of split, so is AL. So they decide to split. And the 3rd Grub will go the way of NiP, 2-1.
Yeah, it's a really nice pick for NiP to actually really stabilize a lot of the early game here. Flandra getting caught is a pretty big problem. That Rumble ultimate is really the thing that was going to change a lot of that fight. If you're not able to drop the equalizer or even just put out the damage that Rumble can do at this level, then all of a sudden that big gold lead that you have over the Kiana, it's basically non-existent. And somehow, some way, we've ended up in a spot where ninjas in pajamas have 2 Grubs. Certainly could be worse for AL, but it's a good spot for NiP to be in. They have the gold lead here. A lot of that is going to be through their Yunara and through their Ornn. If they can get those 2 into good spots, they can still play front to back. And, you know, as much as Kiana's down in gold, eventually she's going to be able to do some damage.
Yeah, it's not like she's not going to bring anything to the table. A good supreme display of talent as well will provide enough CC for the rest of the team to potentially make an impact. The only issue is you got to make sure that Leave is in a good spot where he's going to be dealing damage. You know, he's got to wait for maybe 1, maybe 2 completed items at that point. You know, Doinb is going to have the Tibbers ready and in a prime position in order for them to fully capitalize on anything like this, Cam. We have less than a minute until the next dragon is up. You know, AL wants to scoop that one up, given the fact that it feels like they're playing almost 5v4 right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a tough spot for NiP. This is the exact time they need to be as aggressive as they possibly can be. The more passive they are in the mid game, the easier it's going to be for AL to get to a spike that I think they will not be able to relinquish. This team has made mistakes in this part of the game. We'll see what NiP want to try to capitalize on. For now, Nio, you know, not getting himself back in terms of the CS lead, but certainly at least catching up in terms of levels. And you can argue that that is just as important. If this Kiana can find 1 good ultimate, can still find a fight. It's really going to be about Doinb and those Annie setups, though. He's already been fantastic at the start of this game. We'll see how he uses the rest of his stuns.
Remember that NiP does have a very scant gold lead at this time. Not that it really means all that much at this point, as the dragon is now up. We're starting to see everybody hover around this bottom side. Nio is lying in wait because you know that they're going to try to make a play onto Doinb. Annie shoving up alone in a lane is very exploitable at times.
You gotta protect your mid laner, especially when you're looking over at Shanks on the other side and you see a completed Rod of Ages. Certainly an accelerated Orianna because of the CS that Shanks has been able to pick up in this side wave. Certainly very positive for AL. The faster they can accelerate some of these items being built, the better. Obviously, it is for their comp especially, but we see those first item completions coming in for quite a few. We see the Kraken completed here for Leave, and we see that Sundered Sky completed for the Jarvan as well. Dragon started up by NiP, though. Tarzan is here, but the rest of AL is not quite yet. Montra's making his way up. Teleport coming in.
Yep, and Shanks isn't even here yet. He's going to have to teleport in himself once he completes his recall. He's going to teleport toward the mid wave here. We're starting to see Flandre make his way up, and the walls are closing in. Niket can land the Pop Blossom, but big Tempered Fate nullifies the supreme display of talent.
Tarzan.
Big knockups from Tarzan as well, and Flandre's overheated, and he's starting to beat the tar out of people. Leave was caught in the cage. He hops out, trying to get a kill, but a big shockwave means that Leave will fall. Niket on the wrong side of the map, and Flandre will pick that one up. It is a big win for anyone's legend.
Massive fight from AL. It's Kyle who makes the game-saving ult there on the Bard to completely negate the entire engage of NiP. All of their cooldowns burned, trying to kill Tarzan, and he goes invulnerable. Credit to Tarzan and Flandre as well on the back end of that fight for being able to clean things up, but we're going to get a replay of this. Dragon down so low. Niket flashes in to try and get onto Tarzan. Nio just gets the ult cast off as the Tempered Fate lands. It's horrible timing for NiP, but the moment Tarzan comes out, it's a 3-man knockup on the Flag and Drag, and then the Cataclysm to trap Niket in. At this point, Flandre has more than enough damage to clean up alongside Shanks, and this becomes a very easy fight. That could be a game-turning ult for AL, as not only do they have gold now on their primary carries, but I believe they've also started stacking these dragons as they move towards their second.
You know, you said it was horrible timing for NiP, or was it just fantastic timing for Kyle? And if you want to learn timings like that and play like Kyle in your own solo queue games, you can take the opportunity to learn directly from the pros themselves. Whatever you rank, the best way to start climbing now is to schedule a coaching session at prodiff.gg. You'll be able to work one-on-one with an active or recent player in the NACL, ERLs, or the LTA who will teach you to play like a pro. Personalized coaching for the pros today at prodiff.gg. By using code LPL10 at the checkout, you'll get 10% off and be able to support the LPL English broadcast.
We'll see how the rest of this game is played out, but we might want to send that link to some NiP members if it continues to go like this. Certainly not a great start.
Is Tarzan
in this
doing
game
a class? I hope so.
You can tell. I think Tarzan's learned a lot, especially
that'd be
some
crazy.
classes from the last series to now. Tarzan has absolutely destroyed this jungle matchup. He still has a pretty sizable lead onto Nio on the other side of this. But really, if you're looking at angles and avenues for NiP to get back in, yes, the gold looks okay, but so much of that gold is on your Nico in the support position. You have to play around Leave. He is #1 in gold in the game, despite that fight on the Yunara. You can still get this champion online. It's still very winnable. It's just a lot more difficult now.
Yeah, I mean, he's doing pretty well for himself. He's got a lot of farm. He's obviously missing a couple summoner spells here, and you know, given the fact that this Rift Herald is coming up in just 35 seconds, those critical summoner spells being down means that I don't think NiP can really contest unless anyone's legend are caught flat-footed. If you lose another fight like the way you did that dragon fight, I think this game might be way too out of reach.
Yeah, you can't have these bad setups. I think the big thing for AL is that they thrive in these close quarters fights in River, in these small areas where you can execute that big wombo, where you can shockwave into Equalizer with the Cataclysm, you know, dropping down the Tempered Fate to make sure everybody's safe. They have so much area control that if you allow them to set up in these situations before you get there, it's basically doomed. NiP doing a good job at the very least to not allow that to happen for this Rift Herald, but the question is, will they get punished for being so aggressive? Tarzan jumping in the pit, gonna clear out the vision.
I'm going to start up the Rift Herald on top of it, too. Everybody on the side of AL congregating around this Herald pit. We see Doinby is going to teleport into the mid lane, which means NiP fancied themselves a fight. Kyle walking forward. Temper Fate lands on the Nio. Here comes the call of the Forge God. Kyle gets to the back line to use it on himself. Meanwhile, Niket with a big two-man Pop Blossom. Tarzan going in. Shanks following up. Leave is caught. Leave is dead. Supreme display of talent. Not going to land. Shockwave lands onto 3, but there's no follow-up damage. Shanks is in trouble. He's pulled back in, and he's dead. Doinby gets that kill, and NiP turn it right back around.
It's very misplayed by AL in terms of their positioning. Everybody is so disconnected. Kyle and Flandre are dead at the start of that fight. It's basically a 3v5 for AL. They don't have the damage to break through. It's a really nice pick for Ninjas in Pajamas. They're going to be able to pick up the Rift Herald here, and all of a sudden, you know, 2 grubs, 2 NiP, a little bit of a gold lead in their favor. You've started to recoup a lot of the losses you had in the early game. We're going to get a replay here. It's unfortunately just way too aggressive from Kyle. He ends up portaling in behind Solo Kill to try and dodge the ultimate, but just kind of is alone with the rest of his team. Flandra ends up getting caught and bursted down, and again, at this point, it's a 3v5. Even Tarzan's not going to be able to break through. He has to trade his entire life to kill Leave with a gorgeous shockwave coming in here from Shanks. They just don't have the damage to follow up. Hope's not able to free hit, and it's a really easy win for NiP. This is exactly what they needed to get back into the game, was a small mistake, and this just goes back. This is what we talked about with AL, continuing to maybe step up a little too far forward or make some mistakes in the mid game here.
Yeah, that was really, really poor by Kyle. I mean, the value that he got in that fight compared to the value that Niket got, they're just not comparable. And a big reason why the fight went the way it did for NiP is they now hold a near 2,000 gold lead at this point, the next dragon, in less than a minute. You know AL wants their hands on that one, because you cannot start giving these away. If NiP is able to break the dragon stacking, all of a sudden, we're starting to fear for AL's sanity in this first game.
You definitely got to feel for their confidence, but I will give them, you know, at least something here. Their comp still scales incredibly well, and for as much as we are a little bit worried about this Yunara, who is sitting at a 1.5k gold lead by herself down in the bot lane, there are just more tools for AL in these team fights in the later part of the game. As long as they can get there, you know, they'll need to be able to do that. The Equalizer clearing the wave. A lot of pressure put down on the bottom side here by NiP. We'll see what AL can do on the other side of the map as Tarzan ends up moving to the top side. Dragon spawning in 10 seconds, though. I imagine he's going to want to be around for that as Herald is dropped.
Yeah, and it looks like they might have to just give it up. They're giving up so much here on the bottom side with this Herald getting that turret. They're going to look for the second charge as well. I mean, we see Tarzan on the top side backing for nobody that's going to show up. Kyle going to use the Tempered Fate. I mean, these are big cooldowns that are expended that you're not going to have for this dragon. So it looks like they're just going to get what they get here and give Shanks a turret and call it a day.
I don't think this is the worst call in the world. I think you're looking at a pretty hard fight to win, as he's going to get some damage down on the Solo Kill. He's going to have to flash out, so a nice cooldown burn there by Tarzan. He does have to burn the ultimate to do so, but getting Ornn Flash is certainly relevant. But you are going to have to trade Dragon, and again, that Dragon stacking is so relevant towards this late-game team fighting comp that we talked about for AL. If they don't have those ultimates available, it's just so hard to play these, you know, fights. And this gold lead that NiP is accrued for themselves is in the exact right spots right now. AL have their backs up against the wall here in game number 1. See if they have the ability to pull it out.
And, you know, because of the position they're in and things being very difficult, now you have to get really creative on how you're going to try to go after Leave with both of his summoners up. Now you're going to have to play on eggshells with Niket having that flash available for a big flash Pop Blossom. You know, Nio, remember, we said that he was still going to have some damage and some utility in these fights, and I mean, we haven't really seen him make any really big splashes, but again, you just need to worry about the supreme display of talent. It's a very good ultimate against this AL team who, as we've said, has struggled in some of these fights, who has not been as in harmony, as in sync as they have been in the past. And, you know, I just wonder if maybe that a supreme display of talent is going to sink them in one of these later fights when they're all so disconnected.
I mean, one ultimate, any ultimate landing onto Shanks is probably the end of the fight for AL. Yeah. That's the margin of error that they have.
He's tanky, though.
Yes, but I don't know if he's tanky enough to survive a supreme display of talent into Annie combo. I think that might be a bit of a problem for the Orianna, and so much of the gold is on Ori right now. You're looking at Hope being very far behind on this Corki, and you drafted it to try and take advantage of the early game. Shanks now, though, could potentially be in some danger. Nio, not going to be spotted in the bush. He is now on this control ward, but once again, it's just posturing around this bot side. AO really have no way to full engage this if they don't have control of the area first.
Yeah, and they have a hard time getting control of the area back, right? Because you're walking into unwarded bushes where there's a Pop Blossom. Supreme Display of Talent not going to land. The Tempered Fate means that Tarzan's stuck. Meanwhile, Kyle is going to take the magical journey back to the base as he falls. Now NiP looking to regroup. They have control of this river. Where do they want to go?
This is exactly what NiP need to be doing, is pressuring out the area. If you gain control of the river, force AL to walk into you. They are going to make a mistake. Tarzan still has the potential to go in. Shockwave lands.
Niket is still alive. That equalizer, no, it did finish him off. Now it's a 4v4. Here comes a redemption down for a little bit of healing, but Tarzan didn't get any of it and took quite a bit of damage. Leave below half HP. Does not have transcend oneself either, and NiP are in full retreat.
AL continuing to look, but Doingby is not done. He's still so strong here on the Annie that Champion can continue to combo, but AL somehow walk out of this with a huge win. Niket just overstepping. We talked about him needing to step up. That might be Otacon that he cost them.
Yeah, you say it's a win, but it might not be. Comes teleport coming in from Doinby as well. We know that Otacon's a big throw magnet. Doinby wants to make a play. He doesn't have Tibbers, but he still wants to get in there. Here we go. Oh! It's stolen away by NiP. Now who's going to get out of the fight? And it looks like everybody will survive. No deaths except for Otacon to NiP.
That's massive. That is a huge steal for Ninjas in Pajamas. They would have been in, quite frankly, a pretty terrible spot. Look at the flower difference now. It's completely negligible. If AL had gotten that, there would have been a gigantic level difference, and that would have completely equalized the game. That smite could have just saved everything for Nio. We're going to get to see how he gets in here. He only arrives at 2,500 health. It becomes so close.
He flashed for it.
The flash smite coming in from Nio is enough to secure it. And that truly might be a game-saving play for NiP. AL looks like they were going to have that objective under lock, but once again, they just can't come up when they need to.
And how about Nio having the confidence to say, I can go and steal this objective away from AL. With the game that you've had and how difficult things have been, it's really easy to get down on yourself, no matter how good you are at the game. And Nio really making a big play when he needed to. Now we've seen Equalizer getting dropped onto Solo Kill's head. It barely burns through the Koenig Ruker Shield, but everybody is on top of this Ornn right now, desperately trying to take him down. But here comes the rest of NiP. Pop Blossom with a flash on top of it. Lands on a floor. Pretty big Cataclysm. Kept the ball trapped. The Supreme Display of Talent with the Jarvan is such a non-bow. Great pickup that we finally see come to fruition. Leave has to dash to the side, but both flashes get burned. And Leave is fighting with him back against the wall, desperately trying to survive, but AL's numbers game are far too strong. We're seeing the members begin to fall. Doinby late to the fight. Is there anything he can do on the back end here? Nio just waiting. Hope kind of stuck here. He will try to die to Solo Kill, and he dies to Doinby instead.
Hexgate.
Starting to see Hexgates. Yeah, Nio is trying to break some ankles, maybe get a kill on the way out. Oh my goodness. They have vision of him, but I mean, this guy, I respect for what he's trying to do. He almost got Tarzan.
Yeah, I mean, he almost pulls that fight back, but what a disaster for Ninjas in Pajamas. They look for a really aggressive play, and they just aren't able to execute, trying to counter-engage the AL dive onto the bottom side. You know, some good and some bad there, but I think you properly called out the interaction with that Cataclysm. We're going to see how this all started. It's just AL wanting to try and get a pick onto Solo Kill, but you properly pointed it out. The Koenig Rooker at this point, along with the Merc Treads, are able to tank up so much of the damage. Solo Kill ends up staying alive. The Bartle is going to trap at least a bit of the damage for the start of this fight to not be able to combo off of Niket, who does go down pretty early on, but with that Cataclysm dropped with Nio stuck, Tarzan's able to free hit on the backline. Now Dragon has been started, and looks like it's just going to go down here.
Yep, Nio is not around because he died so late. It'll be the third Dragon going to AL. That's soul point for them. We have 15 seconds until the Baron is up, K-Man. But I imagine this game is going to begin to slow down quite a bit at this point. We're still waiting for Leave to get to his third item. He's almost there.
That is such a key power spike, and he just hit it here. Leave has officially gotten online.
Leave has arrived.
Here. Yes, Leave has arrived, indeed, in this game. He's going to have to be the hero. I mean, Doinby has had a great game. I think Solo Kill has played relatively well on the Ornn, but it's going to come down to how much they can peel for this Yunara. These front-to-backs get more and more difficult to execute on as this game goes further, because AL's is just so easy to set up on. But I hate to continue to belabor the point home, but whoever gets river control in this game is likely going to be the one that's pushing forward these fights.
They are so incredibly close, and you're right, it's just so hard for either team to really retake river control once they have it. We're starting to see sweeps come out here on this Baron. Want to make sure it's nice and clean, no vision to be had. Leaves flash up at about half the time. We're gonna see that barrier come up soon, and if you're NiP, if you're Leave, you're screaming, guys, please don't fight until my flash is up, until Doinbe's flash is up, until Niket's flash is up.
Yeah, you gotta play aggressive here if you are NiP.
Oh my goodness, we're shotgunning Baron.
Andra is not here. He does have teleport available, but he's not channeled it just yet. It's kind of a slower take here, but they've really ramped it up.
Here it is. All right, getting lower, 4,000, 3,000. Bit of a non-bow here, called the Forge God. Is going to land onto Tarzan. Supreme display of talent, only keeping people away. Naya with a big secure, but who's going to get to the back line? Jarvan immediately getting blown up, but Leave is stuck, but they actually can't get to him. And now AL's got to run for the hills.
Yeah, it's a huge, huge fight for Ninjas in Pajamas. They play it basically perfectly as long as they're able to get that 50-50 down. You want to try and keep Tarzan out of that pit, but you're not capable of doing so. AL is going to pick up this mid-tier 1 as a essentially a consolation prize, but it's a big win for Ninjas in Pajamas. Perfectly played by Doinbe to get that stun onto Tarzan the moment he dives in, and all of a sudden that counterplay becomes more and more difficult. NiP even expending resources now to push top wave.
And what a bold call it was by NiP. I mean, and the AL of Split 2 would not take that sitting down just like they did. I mean, they just kind of sat there and stared at it and said, yeah, they're doing this, guys. So another structure will fall here in the mid lane as gold begins to spill in the pockets of NiP. Leave is at about half HP. That is a little concerning.
Yeah, you certainly don't want to overextend here. You can throw the entire game. Luckily, he should have enough survivability, but the thing I really need to call out in this game, the ornaments are coming online. 3 of them have been completed for NiP. The gold lead that you see on your screen, the 3K gold lead at the top, it is significantly more than that in effective items right now for Ninjas in Pajamas. Yeah, you can see it circled on the screen. This is very relevant, but see where AL want to put their resources. If they need to win a fight, then they need to win an odd number.
Dragon in a minute 45. Baron's going to expire at a minute 25. So NiP really needs to take this time to make sure that all of the waves are pushing in their favor to make sure they get this river control. As we talked about, they should have it without too much of an issue. And if you're AL, we talked about it. Players that need to step up. Shanks, he's 2-1-3. Yeah, he doesn't have a ton of damage, although the Horizon Focus can do quite a bit. We haven't really seen a big shockwave come through in a fight that's actually fightable. We saw that 3-man shockwave in the 4v2 that he ended up dying just afterward. We need to see him try to make a big play.
Yeah, I mean, the shockwave I'm going to remember right now from this game is the one he whipped. Kyle, though, potentially be in some danger. He's just going to be able to magical journey his way out of there. Shanks has been really clutch on this Orianna throughout all of this year, especially when this team was succeeding at the top of the LPL. He's going to need to be incredible in these fights. If you can catch Leave, it's still very winnable with so much gold on him, but you have to be wary of Doinbe. He's played a phenomenal Annie game up until this point, and once again, NiP get full control over this river as Dragon is spawning in just over 30 seconds.
Yeah, and they're trying to snuff out whatever vision that AL are trying to put down, and you know, if they're not able to take it, they're putting vision down themselves to ensure that they're always seeing where AL is coming from. They're acutely aware. And if you're AL, I wonder, can you give this Dragon? Shanks, though, is going to get flanked here. Where is that ultimate from the Bard? Shanks might get blown up, but he's still alive at about half HP. Doinbe flashing forward, taking him out, and they're looking for more. Kyle getting chased away. Tarzan is low. And NiP, their vice grip on the game is getting tighter.
It's not the cleanest of execution, but NiP get the job done regardless. Shanks is taken down. That is a free Dragon. It stops the soul from going over to AL, and that might be one of the final bits that they needed to push this game towards its end. That is AL's win condition. The farther you can delay that, the harder it is. Doinbe once again being the one to really come in clutch with that flash and secure the kill onto Shanks. He's had a phenomenal game here. We're going to get a replay. Shanks is just too far forward. This is something we've criticized multiple members of both of these teams for, and he's just caught pushing behind his tier 2 here, near his tier 2. Nio goes in to try to execute him, but you know, honestly, the Kiana not looking too spiffy. Luckily, Doinbe's there to be able to clean it up and to be able to secure it for NiP, but it definitely just comes down to that execution. You can't be making those mistakes at this point in the game.
And, you know, mentioning that the Kiana hasn't been that great, everybody else on NiP has just been that good, and their macro play has been actually quite good, and understanding that once they are able to walk into an area, it's so hard for AL to get back in. It doesn't matter if you're not really up to snuff or performing on a particular champion in a particular game. As long as you're coming together and making plays, you can get a lead against one of the better teams in the LPL. Tarzan from behind. We're seeing Kyle get blown up. The Supreme Display of Talent does a whole lot. And on the backside, Tarzan's all alone. Shockwave only lands on the 2, but the Temper Fade on top of it is going to stall out any kills. Here comes the Pop Blossom. Is looking for Shanks. Kyle getting low because Leaf and Solo Kill are running down. AL, it's a double kill. It's a triple kill for Leaf. And on the backside of the fight, Shanks might find a kill, but he's only going to find a grave because Niked should be able to take him down. Hold on the slow. Yes, he will be able to finally get him here. The push in the mid lane is here. They have a couple of minions, and they got a really, really tanky Ornn. I think NiP can take the game.
That is game 1 going to the underdogs. Ninjas in pajamas against all odds are able to take down AL with the draft that AL wanted the most. This is going to be an interesting one, Yanni.
This one's going to get spicy. I said it was going to be 3-2 for a reason, because AL have an inability to play super clean. NiP are a team that can drag you into the muck sometimes, and they sunk them.
I think that is an understatement. This was a game that was in the hands of AL and they threw it away, but more importantly, NiP grasped that control from anyone's legend. They took what they needed, they played towards their strengths, they got their carries fed, and they executed better. There is no doubt about it. NiP was the better team here in game number 1, and if that panic meter was, you know, a little bit negative towards AL, it's fully in the other direction
wild
now. Oh,
man, that is brutal loss for AL. A really well played game by NiP. I mean, there was that one fight that really turned it all around for them. They were able to launch that, parlay that into a big comeback. 2 big objective secures by Nio. He had a really tough game, yes, and some of these fights weren't that great, but in a lot of big key moments, he showed up.
Yeah, I'm typing jungle diff in the chat after that one. I think that's where I'm going if I'm anybody on NiP in that one. You get set behind 30 CS in the early game, fully invaded. You land every smite throughout the rest of the game. You're able to get the Otacon, which really saves the game, and then obviously the 50-50 Baron that basically wins it for NiP. You know, you can talk about the Qiyana. There are some execution errors, and it certainly did look like his first ever Qiyana game, but you know, some things are eternal, and that Smite Key is definitely one of them.
Yep, Smite is eternal. And for AL, now you're back to the drawing board. I mean, this is a draft that, you know, is very easy to execute, too. Like, we didn't see a Jarvan Rumble combo that was, like, very impactful. In fact, some of these equalizers really weren't that great, in my opinion. Despite the scoreline that Flandra had, I think it was really carried by that early fight where he got a couple of kills. And I mean, this is, again, just the AL team that we've seen in Split 3 that just can't put it together. They're all slightly on different pages, right? They might be on the same page, but they're in different paragraphs. Like, it's so close to coming together. And any team that is really locked in are just able to disrupt it completely.
I think that what we saw in this game number 1 was everything we were worried about from AL. We saw Tarzan diving in without the rest of his team. Real no damage follow-up. We saw Kyle getting separated, over-indexing to try to save Tarzan, whereas, you know, he wasn't really peeling for the backline. We saw players like Flandra, you know, being disconnected in the sense that, you know, he got caught out first in multiple fights, and then Hope is on the backline looking to do damage on this Corki with absolutely no setup. It just did not feel like AL were performing as a team, and this has been a recurring problem for them, and you can even really see that in the damage numbers, because this is not how this damage graph should look for AL.
This is a low damage game. This is a really low damage game, actually. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little surprised by that, and I think it's very telling to see a Rumble have that low damage in a game where he's got a couple of kills. I mean, it was just not what you wanted to see. Yeah, 27% of the damage, by the way. Him and Hope splitting that. But Lee doing 40% of his team's damage. I mean, again, this is what we said early on when they picked it. Go and put Nio on a carry champion. Go and put Leave on a hyper carry and let him go to work. And sure, the first part, the second part,
Yeah, big thumbs up. Big thumbs up from the Yunara that very rarely gets through draft. And I think we started to see why in this game, where the moment Leave got accelerated. And let's not forget, Leave had a big lead on this Corki in the early game. That is not why you draft Corki. You do not draft it to lose to Yunara in the early game. But Yunara was definitely accelerated, and Leave took full advantage of it. I gotta be honest though, if I'm looking at a potential MVP this game, I think Doingby played this just about as well as an Annie can play this. Multiple setups and stuns that completely changed fights. This really just was a team effort from NiP that really put them over the top.
No doubt. Leaf certainly had a lot of fights that were, he did a whole lot in them with not as much setup. But I think in a lot of the key fights, Doingby was the guy. Even if you're only getting one kill to kick things off, you know how it is in pro play. You get a 5v4, you're in such a good spot. It's almost as good as outright winning a fight. So I'm with you. I'd give it to Doingby. I do think that Leave would certainly deserve it if he got it, and I think that's who they'll probably end up giving it to.
And I can understand it. This Yunara was massive, and maybe it's not quite as flashy to just sit behind your awesome engage and to free hit for 5 seconds in a team fight, but it's certainly effective. Yeah, he absolutely does. Leave is one thing you can say about Leave is he is not scared to go in and play aggressive when he does have this gold lead. And this is how you should pilot something like Yunara. I mean, the amount of damage that Leave is able to pump out in these fights, like this is the reason that we've considered him one of the more mechanically talented up and comers in the LPL, regardless of role or position, because he's able to have fights like this.
Taking a look at that Tempered Fate in that fight, we talked about how the Bard being able to hit some key targets will be really, really important in this game. And it just felt like Kyle's Tempered Fates were not really excellent. He had a couple of okay ones, a couple good zoning ones actually, but you never had the intended effect of really what you wanted outside of that one dragon fight, right? Where it nullified the supreme display of talent. It nullified the Kiana completely, 2 members even. But outside of that, it was just not the greatest Bard game ever. It didn't pair well with the Corki. It didn't roam around and get kills in the laning phase. And I think they might have been better served to pick a more, traditional engaged support.
As it turns out, like the problems that AL had as a team kind of get compounded when he feels like he needs to leave lane, when Kyle feels like he has to roam with Tarzan, because the big problem that we've been talking about is those two are linking up almost too much. They're sacrificing too much across the map in order to try to make plays in the jungle. I think that is the exact epitome of what happened in the mid game here. All of the strategy was put on taking the Kiana out, whereas the Yunara was just getting so far ahead. As we get our MVP coming in.
Yes! Listen. We knew that the official LPL English, or LPL broadcast, I should say, were ball knowers. We know there's a conglomerate of voters. They are definitely ball knowers. And Doingby, 2-1-12. It's a very odd scoreline out of a mid laner to receive MVP, but it is a Doingby scoreline through and through, K-Man. And big ups to the mid laner.
A prototypical Doingby game. I mean, he set up literally every fight for his carries, and they went and did the damage to win them the game. That's exactly what you want to see out of NiP, and it follows the script that they've set for themselves all year long.
Yeah, and if you would like to be like Doingby and support us the way Doingby supports his team, you can consider becoming a Coffee member. Coffee is the best way to support the LPL English project because a vast majority of your contributions go directly into the show. A lot of the initial payments do go into upgrading the broadcast, and a large bulk of it pays on-air talent like K-Man and myself and our other content creators. Subscribe to our Coffee, which will be linked in the chat, and you can unlock perks like early access to content and the ability to ask interview questions for our unique on-site interviews. We are going to go ahead and take a short break, and when we return, we'll be in the Game 2 draft between Anyone's Legend and NiP, with NiP leading 1-0.
Hey everyone, I'm Sajed, ADC for Dark Zero in the NACL, and I'm here to break down this FPX backdoor and our prodiff deep dive. Baron is spawning in 1 minute, and that's the objective to play for, and the next mid wave coming out of base kind of dictates which team will get set up. FPX kind of has a cheat code because they took the enemy inhibitor, so they have the super minions, which will help them push the wave faster and makes their wave tankier. And Silas, he's down 7k gold. He kind of knows he's pretty useless, so he opts to not even show on the side wave and just goes and overgroups on mid wave. On the flip side, IG has rookie TP to the top lane, and then he shifts down to mid. So that's the two big advantages FPX has going into this fight. They have TP advantage on their mid laner, and they took the enemy inhibitor. So the fight starts really well for IG. They burn a bunch of the enemy sums and ults, but the problem is since they contested from top river, they never actually got the wave. Instantly they start running to the wave. They take the fight away from the TP-less Victor, who's the most fed member in the game, and they just walk the wave down. They know that the game went long enough that winning a 5v5 is not the only way to win the game. They want to play around their advantages, and taking the fight away from the TP-less Victor and into the enemy nexus is their best bet. IG made the mistake of over chasing into the enemy vision, and they never actually caught the wave. So FPX is actually able to just hit the nexus turrets and threaten an end. Gala never recalled. He opted to just walk to his nexus. Maybe he thought it was faster, but he never actually gets the impact the fight, and FPX actually does get the backdoor off. So in the end, it's really important to know what your advantages are in a game and just playing around them. FPX did that very well from a losing situation and actually won the game off that. Thanks for watching. You can check out one-on-one coaching from me and other pros at prodiff.gg. To stay up to date on everything LPL English, follow at LPL_English on Twitter, and make sure to catch the games on LPL's English Twitch or YouTube.
Welcome back, everybody, to the unofficial LPL English broadcast. NiP leads the series 1-0 over anyone's Legend K-Man. I'm going to be honest. I put it down as a 3-2. I didn't expect this game to go the way it did, especially for that early game that Tarzan had. Like, bro, how does this happen?
You're telling me. I predicted 3-0. I'm sitting here wondering what's even going on right now.
You're a damned fool, K-Man.
I am.
I tell you that much.
I have been proven to be a fool in this particular instance.
You're still sipping on the Split 2 Kool-Aid, bro. Like, it's over. We live in a different world.
I wanted to believe. We're getting it thrown up. I'm getting my results thrown in my face.
We're eliminating them off the island. Slayer, Mazel, Bloxer, Rude Dude. That's K-Man, the unknown over there. Unknown why you made this a 3-0, but...
Yeah, honestly, I really believed that AL would say, hey, we kind of got, reality checked here by Weibo. We're going to, hopefully wake up and at least play aggressive. Like, maybe we're not going to play clean, but we're going to hands check them. We're going to be better. They got hands checked in game number 1. They were outplayed almost entirely. Yeah, without a doubt. And you can see Hulk Battery over there. He maybe he's onto something. I mean, this guy is definitely a ball knower. Obviously, we're not quite there yet, but like, maybe he's onto something. Yeah, you're right. They did get hands checked, right? And it's not overly surprising to see because AL is not a hands check you team. AL is a be very aggressive team. AL is a play the map very well team, and because of the positions they're in, they won't need to hands check you. And yet, they're just putting themselves in positions where they can get hands checked, and they're losing them. I think that the scariest sentence that I have said over the past couple of weeks is that the core of this roster got 6th and 7th together last year, and they added a world-class jungler who's not playing like a world-class jungler right now. And they are staring down the barrel of a very similar fate to maybe what their 2024 looked like. They need Tarzan to step up. There were multiple times where he was completely disconnected from his entire team in that game, where he was diving in on the Jarvan to try to get onto backline and instantly dying, getting stunned by Doing B, the damage coming down from Leave. It just wasn't coordinated enough, and I think that is the difference. You need Tarzan to step up and play like the world-class jungler we know he can be. K-Man, how do you think you fix this, right? Do you have to just put him on champions that like can't go that far? Like, does this mean you can't play Vi? Does this mean you can't, like, you can't play Pantheon even if it's available? Like, are you gonna just continue to be that disconnected? Is he gonna have to be on Sejuani duty? Like, this is something that's, you have to fix this in this series, right? Because now if you continue to lose games like this, you're gonna start to have serious questions about whether or not you can actually get out of the regional gauntlet. And like, that would be one of the biggest collapses of all time in League history, to see where this team went and how they started in Split 1, anyone's Legend, finishing second, getting to the finals, Split 2, winning, going to MSI, having a solid performance there, to what they are now. I mean, they came back and we were like, oh, it's the travel schedule. And then they were like, oh, we don't know the meta too well. So we're like, oh, it's the meta. What is it now? What's the excuse now? There is no excuse. There are no more excuses. This is who AL is right now. The lucky thing is we know that they can be better. They have at least shown that there is a better version to get to. The question now is, will they get there? They need to succeed in this draft. We see the Galio, Talia, Alistair taken off the board for AL. Right now, the Poppy and the Azir taken away from anyone's Legend. Notably, the Rise is up. You can very much consider this first pick worthy. They have taken away a lot of the other macro threats coming out of the mid lane, but Pantheon as well, with the Trundle ban going to be left available, certainly a big decision for AL. That's so smart by NiP. They said, okay, you want to go take away the Rise from Doinby? That's fine. We will go ahead. We'll take a Pantheon. And now all of a sudden, you can take some other good options out of the mid lane that'll pair well with that Pantheon, right? There's this Aurora that tends to be pretty good because you got a lot of damage. That'll be a big takeaway from AL later on. If you want to go something like an Ahri, you still can. Obviously, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves because I'm not quite sure NiP is going to directly pull out their mid laner here, but there are still options available, or maybe they just will. And they'll go with Victor, which I think, I don't know. I like the scaling.
it just never really went too well with me when it comes to him and Pantheon.
Yeah, I don't love the combo with Pantheon. This is the lane pick. Victor is a pretty strong counter to Ryze in terms of the way that you want to play out both lane and out of lane scenarios. This has always been one of Ryze's more difficult matchups, and so it makes sense for Doingby to feel like, hey, game one went pretty well. Let's go ahead and get me into something I can get an advantage on again. Will be the Scion and the Sivir locked in, though. Flandre has been exceptionally good on tanks, and it gives Hope something consistent that he doesn't have to main carry on entirely. It gives him escape tools as well, something that while he had on the Corki, weren't utilized to their fullest extent. Hopefully the team ends up playing around bot lane a bit better here, but it's just going back to the well for AL.
We're going to see this Ambessa get locked in for solo kill, one of his signature picks, and you've got a lot of dive. You've got a Victor that's able to kind of stay in the back and fire out these lasers, and if you're an NiP, you are really looking for some more dive champions. This is a wise ban from AL. Take out that Kai'Sa. Don't let Leave get it. We all know what these players can do on Kai'Sa. Make him play a different AD carry and mismatch with Niket playing a dive champion.
That's the thing, is that there really aren't a lot of great options if you want to continue to play aggressive, and that's why I like taking away, junglers like Wukong and Xin Zhao. You did say earlier, Yanni, you asked me, like, is it just Tarzan moving off of some of these more aggressive picks? I want to remind people, Tarzan really made his name on Griffin back in the day, playing Sejuani, playing Maokai, playing Zac, playing these more
we go back to that,
tanky and, facilitators. I think that certainly could be an option coming in here for the team.
I love
it does
this.
set up relatively well with the Ryze, but Senna just seems so obvious with the scaling alongside the Victor, and Leave is one of the best Sennas we have here in the LPL.
And not only that, there's no Smolder to really punish this or anything like that. So you get to go that center Rakan lane, which will give you the dive that you need. You'll be able to hit from super far away, play super safe. Obviously, depending on what AL takes, you might not necessarily go for that. I really like the idea of picking a Leona here. I think giving Leona a speed boost with the Sivir on the hunt will certainly be able to help out getting to some of these targets a little bit quicker. Let's see what we're going to have out of our jungler here over for Tarzan. I think it's got to be another one of these aggressive champions just to really be enabled by the Sivir, and it will be that Nefiri.
Tarzan wants to carry. We're not seeing Sejuani. We're seeing Nefiri come in, and I think he kind of felt a little bit powerless in that game, diving in without the rest of the team, but it is a huge response here with the Braum getting locked in on R5. These are really interesting drafts that I think parallel game one really aptly in the way that they are set up, because I think both of these teams are, at the very least, attempting to learn from some of the mistakes that maybe they had. I think there are way more tools for NiP to avoid disaster in that early game while still really indexing into the scaling with Victor plus Senna, but Nefiri Ryze is one of the more dynamic mid-jungle duos, and you're not going to be left wanting for damage out of those two.
Without a doubt, and I think that this is a mid-jungle duo that can beat out the Pantheon and the Victor early on in some of these skirmishes, but it is going to be a little bit tough. Remember, we talked about how Victor having that little bit of extra range will be pretty big, especially when you start getting around to these team fights at these objectives. Okay, K-Man, here's what I'm thinking for NiP. If you're NiP, you can kind of seed a lot of things here. There's a lot of early aggression, and yes, sure, you want to make things happen with this Pantheon, but you have a Senna, you have a Victor. The only thing you should be doing is really playing toward your Ambessa early if you're able to. Everybody says, don't go after the Scion. Scion early on can die to Ambessa Pantheon. We've seen it a lot this year. That's a surefire way to get solo kill ahead. And obviously, if you go elsewhere, it's just, you're really carrying the damage if you're Nio, which means you have to be absolutely on point.
A lot of responsibility on Nio in this game on the Pantheon to get moving and to get his carries fed. Will he step up? We had a rough game number one from him. Despite the win, he's going to need to be better. A lot of responsibility on his opposition on the other side with Tarzan as well. I am really excited for this setup. Both of these teams have options.
All right, let's go. We're back. Summoner's Rift Game 2. NiP up 1-0. The banner! Guys, what are we doing?
It's, They
look like AL out there.
Just all discombobulated in the way that it's being presented. So many things happening.
Hang on. Look at them. Ooh, wee, wee, woo. Wah, wah, wahs. Nio will take quite a bit of damage for himself once again. And this ward going down, he'll put a ward down himself as well. And I'm sure he'll go back and get another kid. It's a little too late to go back here, so just going to drop that ward start on the bottom side here. Keep that in mind that, you know, once again, Tarzan might look to get aggressive. Take a look at what the spell suite is with summoners and with runes. We have Summoner Spellbook coming out from both supports here. Not too shocking given the fact that there's not going to be too much lane combat going on.
Yeah, this is definitely a pretty standard start. Luckily, Pantheon not going to get set behind nearly as much as the Kiana for taking some damage in the early game. Definitely a worthwhile place to look, though, here in the bot lane.
Farm up those stacks, baby.
Early. Yeah, you got to get those stacks on to leave. If he can get stacking early with a Victor, yeah, this becomes real scary real fast.
Yeah, Leave has been really, really good at getting Senna stacks throughout this season, so I'm excited to see if this trend continues, especially in this game, because he'll spike so early on the Senna, much earlier than a lot of other Sennas do, just because he's got a good nose for getting them, and you know that might be able to take AL by surprise, especially in parts of the game where they're expecting that they're strong. We know that this team understands their conditions quite well, K-Man, and if you get surprised by that, you can really throw off their gameplay.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to get surprised by any sort of free gold. That's going to be, you know, it's going to go south really quickly. And I think especially for AL, you talked about it earlier, there are opportunities for, you know, NiP to potentially punish the top side. Well, I think there's a real possibility that you can spend resources and really put Leave into kind of a bad position, especially after level 4 or so when it comes to this Neferi. Even if you're not able to pick up a kill, it should be easy to allow Sivir to just constantly push in this wave and really put her in a good spot. So we'll see how much attention Tarzan wants to put. For now, it's just going to be standard clears, opposite side clears for these two junglers.
You saw on your screen just a moment ago, Hope a clean 7-0, looking to make it 8 in this game. He's going to have a lot on his plate later on. See Leave be able to walk this one out. Now they're turning on to Kyle for good damage. Niket going to be able to hop away. We are seeing a lot more trading than I initially expected, K-Man, but I'm all here for it.
Yeah, you definitely want to play aggressive if you're NiP, but Tarzan understands that as well, as I called out. Bot lane definitely going to be a bit of a priority for him. Leave actually taking quite a bit of chunk. See if he wants to go for this, potentially.
These guys are out of mana, K-Man. Like, they are stuck on an island. KL has plenty of mana to be able to go in here. Tarzan is in position. Here we go. We're going to land a couple stuns down. Leave going to be able to flash away. Kyle got rooted, and it's first blood going over to Niket. And now Tarzan's in trouble. He gets caught too, and he goes down. A 2-for-1 for NiP.
It's horribly played by AL. It's just about as poorly set up as you can possibly make it. Not only is Kyle immediately tanking the tower shots, but with the heal pop from Niket, they actually don't have the burst damage to take down any of them at the start of that fight. It's really well played by Niket to disengage that entire exchange, but it's a huge win for NiP, and we talked about getting that Senna further ahead. Tarzan needed to shut that down, and all he did was give more gold over to the main carry. Let's go ahead and get a replay of this. Once again, Kyle engaging here is just a huge mistake because he's immediately rooted, and at this point, he's just dead. You don't have the damage to break through. If Hope's not free-firing this entire time, Tarzan ends up getting stunned up by the Braum, and at this point, it's doomed. Even with the 2-for-1 trade, the gold is not going in the right spot. You're not even getting it onto the Sivir, and so it's just a pretty bad play all around for AL, and definitely a win for NiP.
These boots are going to be really, really good for Leave. You can see right there. That's a boots of swiftness difference. He's got no summoners. He could have actually just died there.
That's definitely something you want to keep in mind in these exchanges early on. If Leave's going to be, you know, either even safer or allowed to play more aggressive, which is the more likely option considering the player, that really opens up a lot more opportunities for NiP. The dragon is on the bottom side here. It will be Mountain Dragon. AL still, you know, controlling the lane. Sivir will generally do that despite, you know, any sort of early kill going down. But I'm interested to see if either of these junglers want to invest early.
Nio just hanging out, farming up, having a good time. You know, that's what you expect out of a Pantheon to go hit level 6 uninterrupted. Maybe you could make a play here or there, but again, based on the lane assignments, probably just a little bit better off that he takes his own camps because these lanes are a little weak in terms of what side of the map they're actually on. Meanwhile, we see Tarzan heading toward this bottom side again, but Nio is on his way. Don't tell me we're going to look for round 2, boys.
Oh, round 2 might be getting set up right now. Tarzan looking for the Gromp, not going to find anything, at least for now. It doesn't look like this is
Here we go, round 2.
Going in.
Round 2, baby, and this time you're not under the turret. It's not going to do a whole lot, though.
I don't understand what the thought process is here from Tarzan. It's really difficult to put these two behind under turret. You need to allow them to push, and that's going to be difficult against Sivir. They are going to be able to pressure out with the Dragon here because Shanks is doing a great job in lane of actually being able to control that wave despite Nio's interference. And luckily for that, they are going to be able to, at the very least, start pressuring this Dragon. But the team is still in this area. I don't know if NiP want to give this up.
This might not be free. Kyle's been spotted out. Shank's below half HP, but Doinby's got no mana. He's got a wave pushing into him. We're going to see a little bit of poke. We're going to see a Realm Warp come out too. Shanks might get turned around on here. He's on vision. Leaf steps up a little bit too far. Kyle's going to get a stun, but again, nothing more. Now it's just Leaf farming stacks off these members here. I think this is very good for NiP. So again, they're stepping up a little far here. Another engage going to come down, and Ignite's going to get burned too. Nio is level 6. Niket is in danger. The Dark Daggers are actually enough to kill him off the bleed. But again, these health bars are low. These stacks are getting farmed. Heal's going to be burned. Flashes from NiP. Kyle barely survives after a spear to the back.
A truly messy exchange from both of these teams. AL has full control over the river because, as you pointed out, Doinby is not there.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, we're
Nio, so deep. All of this for a 1-for-1. Although Niket is finally here, but Doinby can't really get close. He is level 7. He's got a little bit of mana. Doesn't look like he's going to be able to kill Shanks, and now all of a sudden this is a problem. Tarzan's level 6. Tarzan is going to get stunned. Niket will die once again to the bleed out on the Dark and Daggers.
This is chaos, Yanni. We are amongst crazy people on the Rift here today. That's 4 kills for Tarzan as we walk out of that exchange here at 8 minutes. If we wanted a Nefiri to get enabled, I think the Nefiri has been enabled. I don't really understand the call here at all by Ninjas in Pajamas to stick around for this Dragon. Doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. You're, yes, getting some of those free stacks on the Senna, but, you know, there are a lot of engage tools on the side of AL, and they use them to capitalize on the mispositioning error. It starts as a bad fight for NiP and turns even worse after the ult coming in from Nio. It's this over-aggression that is really, really punished, and now Tarzan's in a prime position to carry this game as he's completed his Spear of Shojin 8.5 minutes into the game.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, and this is just so tough for NiP, you know, when we talk about their scaling and how they're just a little bit weaker in terms of the early game compared to guys like Shanks and Hope and the champions they have. It means that AL is easily able to stack up some of these dragons, and against scaling teams, getting an early soul is one of the best things you can do, or just, you know, soul sweeping as an example. So a little bit of a feather in their cap there. They're doing the grubs as well. That's going to be free just because you can't touch Tarzan at this point in time.
I think this is becoming very, very scary for NiP very quickly. Not only is Nefiri very enabled, and not only is it Tarzan, who is obviously a phenomenal carry, but you're already looking at these comps, and NiP's big advantage is their range in a lot of these fights over Nefiri and over Ryze. Well, if you have all of this engage coming from Sion and Leona and a potential Realm Warp, and you're dropping a lot of these damage dealers, I think it's reasonable to say that AL already scale better in this draft, even with a Victor and a Senna on the other side with as much damage with that Sivir, Ryze, Nefiri trio as they have. I think NiP need to keep their foot on the gas. If they let this game kind of stall out with that 4-kill lead, it might get even better for AL.
Yeah, and, you know, Leave is trying to do what he can. Again, we've put so much emphasis on the Senna stacks. He's got 41 stacks at 10 minutes. That's incredible. That's a really, really good pace.
Yeah.
I mean, if he can continue to keep this up, I mean, maybe he's able to, you know, help out the rest of the team a little bit sooner. Problem is, Doinby going with this Rod of Ages, you kind of have to, given the scenario, is they're going to go all in on the Leave. They're going to force the cleanse out. But, yeah, Doinby going that Rod of Ages because he has to. It's going to take a lot longer for him to come online.
That's huge. You just forced cleanse a minute and a half before Dragon. If that fight was going to happen, it's not anymore. Leave can't stay safe. Look at all of the engage, as I pointed out, on the side of AL. All you had to burn was Leona ultimate, which will be back up for the fight. Again, it's a really big cooldown there for NiP that they're just not going to have access to, and it's AL continuing to stay proactive, whereas NiP getting punished for stepping a little too far forward. And you can see that in terms of how the vision is set up on the map. Tarzan utilizing it to invade.
Oh, hang on. We're going to see a little bit of a skirmish here, I'm sure. Nio was able to secure his chickens. This Pantheon pick has really not had the intended impact that we thought it was going to have. Obviously, it's going to be very difficult to do so now, given the fact that Tarzan is so far ahead. But, you know, Nio chose the farm until 6 are out, which is totally fine. but his first ultimate just went 1 for 1. And it gave Tarzan a 4th kill. That ain't it, Chief.
Yeah, I think it ain't it. I think that's an apt way to describe it. is trading that was not good. And Nio is so integral to how this comp moves. You pointed it out earlier. This Mbessa was a power point that could potentially be taken advantage of. We have not spoken at all about the top laners in this
There's
game.
an Mbessa?
There's an Mbessa and a Scion, if you would
Oh my
believe
God.
it.
When do they staple Evelyn passive onto these guys?
I can definitely understand maybe why you're looking at a player named Solo Kill at 0-0-0, 12 minutes into the game and feeling a little bit betrayed, but it's just been so action-packed everywhere else across the map, and unfortunately it's just not gone in favor of NiP. I think the game gets harder for them from this point onwards, but it's still on Nio. When you're looking at ways to go in or ways to create fights, like, yeah, you've got Senna Victor damage. It has to be Pantheon. That is the only way that you are ever going to set up here, and that means they have to take things like this Dragon.
Yep, it's going to get started up, but here comes the rest of AL. Rise is going to have an earlier a move here, I should say. 3 from the top as they're trying to sandwich these guys in. Here we go, full engage, on to leave. He's CC'd for days. He has no cleanse. He has no life. He drops the ultimate, and Tarzan is going to follow him, and the Dark and Daggers will be able to take him down. Solo Kill joins a little bit late. He's immediately knocked up, but he's got a lot of HP. He flashes away. Public execution on top of Hope, looking to chase him down with a Dairy Count step, and he will. Flandra trying to disrupt him, but he can't. It's a double kill for Solo Kill. Shanks on the backside trying to roam warp out, and he roam warps the zombie Rise, the decaying corpse of Flandra. It is a fight win for NiP somehow, some way.
Does that count as a caster curse, Yanni, if Solo Kill teleports in and takes over the fight after we had just spoken about how he's not doing anything? Are we considering that a win for us as the casters? Because that was incredible stuff. Nio ends up with a really good angle on this fight, as we're going to see in the replay here. This looks like a fantastic engage for AL. They're completely pincered. Kyle taking full advantage of the fact that he burned Leave's cleanse in that previous fight, but the exhaust comes down at the exact right time, just enough to keep Leave alive for long enough to force Tarzan over the wall. Flandra teleports in at half health, and at this point, they don't have the health bars. They've expended too many resources. This ult landing onto Hope is absolutely massive, though. Solo Kill once again coming in clutch. He's been huge in these mid-game skirmishes for NiP throughout the entire year.
Oh, hang on. Look at picture in picture. We're fighting. Niket is dead. He will not be able to survive. It's a nice aggressive play from AL to wrestle back control. As Nio is trying to walk up here. I think this is a bit of dangerous business because that's a lot of damage that Tarzan's able to do. Here comes the redemption down from the dead Braum as Doinby now coming from the top side here, but Shanks is in fog of war. He had no idea. Doinby's in trouble. He's forced to flash out. Nio on the backside with Leave. They're able to get the job done. Go, wait, Tarzan dropping that ultimate down. Look at these health trades. Nio is getting very low, but Leave is able to free hit. 63 stacks for this guy. He is hitting from so far away. 14 minutes into the game. His Senna is just built different.
We don't have a moment to breathe, Yanni. This is this is chaos incarnate on the Rift here today. So much happening. We might not even be done. Niket isn't going to be able to stop the back.
We have 10 seconds till Herald, Ben.
Yeah, Herald's coming up. We have 2.5 minutes till Dragon. Who knows how many fights we're going to get until then, but we're going to get a replay of how this all started, as it started in picture. Looks like it's just a pick onto Niket. It's actually really well played by Kyle and Tarzan to see the angle, even with Leave here. It's chunked out to half health, and they realize they can play aggressive, but at this point, they've overstayed their welcome. Doinby is making his way down from the top side, and Nio, despite the fact that he's getting dove upon, has the Pantheon shield and also has the redemption, which is broken. Hope takes the worst possible path you can take and ends up taking his entire health bar to the tower and just gets free killed. Completely turns the fight, but now we're back to Solo Kill.
Speaking of free kills, Solo Kill is in a little bit of trouble. Dawning Shadow won't be able to save him. A nice play there in the bot lane, but this does mean that the Rift Herald is going to be started up by NiP.
We have no moment to speak on the game state, Yanni. We just have to keep talking.
The game state is fun.
The game state is even. Look at the gold difference. It is literally neutral here for these two teams. You pointed it out. The Herald has been started. Bot lane tower going to be taken here by Flandra, but definitely the prize is the neutral objective on the top side of the map. We're going to get a small replay of how this happened. It's just Solo Kill not respecting that Flandra can actually do a lot of damage and that Tarzan could be in the area. Actually, Herald not going down here. Yeah. It's actually just going to be, I was going to say the bot lane tower, but even that's going to survive at least until this next wave.
Yeah, I'm very curious as to why they had to stop. Well, you know, was too busy looking at the picture-in-picture, and I mean, that just means this is a one play for AL without really any repercussions. We've started up again, but we're continuing to just do this dance here. It isn't really yielding anything, and Leave is left all alone. He burns his cleanse. Here comes the redemption to keep him upright. A little bit of healing, but he's still alive, this guy. But he did put himself in a bad spot, and this does mean that AL should be able to move in on that Herald now.
You know, I'm not a pro. You know, I can't give you quite the coaching that some of the pros at prodiff are going to be able to give you. Redemption is very strong, and I think Leave is proving it. Here we go.
Double teleports coming in. Solo kill. Going to bring up the rear of his team right now. Looking for a nice public execution. We saw what he did last fight with it. Here we go. We might see another smite fight. Good public execution. And it's another one secured for Nio. He just is on every objective. Kyle has to run for the hills. Tarzan and Hope can't really help. And the support has been tagged. And the support has been killed. NiP get another objective.
Ninjas in pajamas are not just stepping up, they are dominating this game number 2 from a state that we thought was doomed. He has 80 stacks. Lead has 80 stacks on this Senna. He is absolutely massive. But I want to give so much credit to Solo Kill. He's played every single one of these fights perfectly on the Mbessa. He ends up locking up Tarzan.
Oh, hang on.
So that it's not a 50-50.
No!
I cursed him,
It came in! What did you do? Came in! You caster curse this man! He's got no energy left. He is going to die to the dogs. And Flounder.
I can't
This is right before Dragon, too. But Tarzan has to back. We have... Oh my god, so much is going on.
It's a lot's going on, Yanni.
This is a classic LPL game.
Death. This is a classic LPL banger that we are getting in game number 2. Herald's going to be crashing into this mid lane turret. They are going to be able to take it down. That's pretty big for NiP to open up the map. It is Infernal Dragon. That means Infernal Soul is available for these two teams. They're going to be charging the Herald down to the bottom side. It looks like they just want to use it for mobility as they end up getting a little bit closer. They're going to crash it into the wall. It's just going to go back into the mid lane. See how they want to move this.
Reminds me of my cousin who hit a curb the other day as Kyle gets jumped on. And he's just dead. There's no support for what's going on in the mid lane here. NiP, they just have all this control everywhere. We've had to send Flandra down. Solo Kill is now on his way back. This dragon has been started. You have no Leona. Your engage is really cut down here, Ale.
Yeah, and the range that NiP have to poke this out is huge. The dragon is getting lower and lower.
Yeah, this dragon is just going to go down. AL, all they can do is push in this wave, and even then, it's half-hearted. NiP are going to be able to catch this. And as AL, you get chickens for it?
Yanni, I am perplexed. I am flabbergasted even by the play that we have seen. Tabe has got to
be losing it right now, bro.
I do not want to be in the room with Tabe as he watches the replay along with us for this fight. This Rift Herald is beautifully played against Solo Kill, locking up Tarzan as the smite goes down. It is not a 50-50. Nio is going to be able to land that, and all of the frontlining, all of the time that is being bought here means that the damage coming out from AL is completely non-existent. Kyle is once again going to have to pay for his team's sins, but it's NiP just being more proactive and playing better as a unit, and I don't know how many times I can repeat this point, but AL's mid games over the past 2 months, they are coming back to bite them, and they could be putting them in a terrible position in game 2.
I cannot believe that we are looking at a game state where, yes, NiP is down gold, but if you've been watching this game, you know that NiP is really in a good position right now. But Tarzan, 7-2. Remember what happened last game on the Jarvan? They lost that game. You mean to tell me, are they going to lose a game where Tarzan starts 4-1 on a carry?
I mean, if that's the case, like you are staring down the barrel of worst case scenario. It's not even just 2-0. It's like we've thrown the kitchen sink at NiP, and they've still been able to beat us at our biggest weakness that we've not been able to fix. Otacon on the map now.
Oh my
goodness. That is a ridiculous stat. Leave is just in a crazy spot, and it's going to allow them to start up. Or I should say AL is actually the one starting up this Otacon. See if the response comes in. It's getting very low.
Yeah, I mean, they caught NiP flat-footed here. 4,000 HP and getting lower as Pantheon is not going to be able to get in. This is going to be Otacon secured for AL. The question is, what's going to happen with the rest of this fight? We see on the backside, Leona has fallen. Flandra trying to get away desperately. I don't know if he's going to be able to get out. NiP is on the chase. Here comes Pantheon over the top. But it looks like the rest of AL will be able to escape. They will lose the bottom tier war.
It's definitely a worthwhile trade for anyone's Legend to be able to sneak that Otacon. I think that objective is very powerful on the current patch, but they're not done. They look to protect this turret.
They saw that solo kill TP'd out. It is a 4v3, so it is going to be difficult, but now we see Hope moving down. We have a teleport coming in from behind. The walls might start closing in on NiP. Leave is staying with the rest of his team, trying to be protected. Flaunger's going to be a zombie for a little bit. Kyle from the backside stuns up Doinby. Here we go, full engage. Tarzan going untargetable. Leave running out of room, and he finally dies. And AL, they win the fight. Here comes solo kill on a solo mission. He's got so much HP, he's got so much shielding, but he doesn't have anybody to help him. And AL ace NiP.
A huge turning point here in the game for anyone's Legend as Tarzan ends up utilizing that gold that he's generated to take over this fight on the Nefiri. You cannot allow that champion to free hit on the backline. It looks like a pretty good setup with you killing Flanger early on in the exchange, but it's just not enough. Tarzan rips through the backline of Ninjas in Pajamas, and when you don't have that range advantage to keep your carries afloat, all of a sudden that 10-kill Nefiri feels a lot more realistic. I think AL might have just salvaged everything for them if they can bring themselves back into this game.
With that as out, K-Man, they're going to take out a couple of turrets here. They're going to really get back in the driver's seat with gold. It's not a whole lot, but it's enough. Take a look at this replay. And when Leave doesn't have anywhere to turn, this NiP comp becomes hard to play.
Again, yeah, the range is what they have to go off of. Leave, unfortunately, kind of gets blocked a little bit by his team as well. They want to try to keep him safe from Kyle, but Tarzan has free access onto the backline. With Doinby flashing out, it actually makes it even easier for Tarzan to flash follow and pick up that double kill onto the bot lane at this point. Yeah, I don't think the Victor is going to be 1v1ing the Nefiri. And also, let's give a lot of credit to the backline as well for AL. Hope and Shanks outputting as much damage as they were capable of doing in that fight, end up really sealing the deal. But it's Tarzan's game to win or lose. We put so much pressure on him before the game, and he's living up to it right now.
40 seconds until the next dragon is up, and here we go. We're already seeing another fight come through. Niket targeted out, Dawning Shadow to keep him upright. Now it's Kyle getting knocked up, and he falls. The Redemption's not going to be able to save him. Doinby's in trouble. Doinby's dead, and here comes the freight train Scion, as well as Tarzan, shoving NiP away. Flash is burnt, but they're still looking for more. The health bars are blinking, and they're finally falling. Solo kill, running out of places to go. The public execution just a dash away, as AL are finally turning it on.
That is a huge catch there for AL. Dragon is up in 5 seconds, and Doinby and Niket are both down for it. That should be a free objective take for anyone's Legend that stops the stacking from NiP and puts them in a much better spot. Tarzan is ridiculous right now. He melted through that Victor in a ridiculously important spot. This guy is popping off, and if you wanted to talk about a world-class, a world's caliber jungler, here you go.
Yeah, he is really having a great game. He's been so good on this Nefiri in his career. 9-1, looking to make it 10. Again, we saw Hope with 7-0 earlier. I believe this split on the Sivir, looking to make it 8, and it wasn't looking good for a while, but now it's starting to look a little bit better. Tarzan finds himself in a little bit of trouble here, but with Flanger here, he is well protected, and now for NiP, you're a little bit lost here. You're waiting for more scaling, but AL, they have plenty of scaling in spades.
I really do want to point out that that is a 6-kill Pantheon, a full item down on the opposing jungler. That is a really bad place to be if you are Ninjas in Pajamas. But
here we go.
AL looking to
Wait, they're all
capitalize.
grouped up. Double knockup is there. AL are pushing the pace, K-Man. They have recognized the weakness in NiP, and they are exploiting it. Fight after fight after fight as Leave is being chased down by the dogs as the siege is on. The Baron is up, and I think AL won it.
How convenient. AL find a fantastic pick right as the Baron is spawning at this 25-minute mark. They're going to make their way to the top side, but this is the AL I remember. This is the aggression in the late game, the capitalization of weaknesses and mistakes on other teams that ended up getting them a championship in the spring split. Should be able to get them to a win here in Game 2 as long as they stay the course.
Baron secured for anyone's Legend as their gold lead is now 7,000 in the blink of an eye. In just a matter of a few fights, it's all turned on its head. Here's that earlier replay that we had.
This is a phenomenal angle from
beautiful.
Flandre. I mean, this is
So
gorgeous. They're all clumped up. They just barely don't get to the blast cone to be able to get out of here. They're chain CC'd into their own demise as Naya was blasted back into the rest of AL. Tarzan continues to dive forward, and the damage from him and Shanks is ridiculous, whereas Hope is just picking up a free kill on the back end of the fight. AL have full control of the map. Everyone at this point is online. The wealth has been shared, and AL are looking to drive a stake through the hearts of ninjas in pajamas. Hope has not lost on Sivir since June 14th. That is a ridiculous record for him, and he's in a great spot to keep that going.
This would be such a tough game for NiP to lose, right? Because you lose out on Doinb Rise, you lose out on Leave Senna, who has really played a damn good game, right? You know, the scoreline obviously is not as pretty as it once was, but hold that thought. We're going all the way in, but the health bars are just already gone. The Dawning Shadow, it's just not going to save you. Nayo is stunned up, side of the back line. Leave is almost dead. Doinb had the flash, but NiP has completely fallen apart at the seams. Everyone is dead except for Leave. Then NiP left the door open for AL at that Otacon, and AL busted down.
The boogeyman is here to take Leave's life. The flash comes in. You cannot cleanse that damage, Leave. You cannot cleanse your Nexus being taken. AL fire back strong.
It wasn't pretty for a long time, K-Man, but that Otacon, they snapped into it. They knew what they had to do once they took it. An amazing game coming out of Tarzan. It wasn't pretty at times, but he got enough kills early on. He was able to recover and finally started making big plays. And again, this is the AL that we thought we were going to see. They were finally in harmony making plays.
Yanni, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. If you would maybe do that panic meter midway through that game, oh no, oh goodness, that would have been bad. But they luckily are able to, you know, corral themselves off the back of their world-class jungler being able to step up on a carry and drive them to victory. I think that there were a lot of great performances at the end of that game, but Tarzan was the one to keep them alive and to keep them in it. All it took was one fight to get them back, and their overall superior comp, in my opinion, ended up pushing them over the top.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, you just have so much ability to move around the map, right, and cheat some of this movement creep. You have Tarzan, who's able to just drop his ultimate down unless Nayo is stunning it. He's getting to his priority targets. You got Flandra's Scion ultimate. You got the Realm Warps. I mean, you've got On the Hunt from Sivir as well. And obviously, I think Shanks and Hope took a bit of a backseat that game, but I think that what they did was very vital in that game, especially the damage they put out in that one fight after the Otacon that really turned the game around. And for NiP, they realized in game 2 it was an expensive lesson that if you give AL an inch, they will still be able to take that mile. You cannot give them any opportunity to find a way back in. If NiP want to win this series, they have to be playing incredibly tight.
And I think that was really the problem for me with their draft, is that I like the idea of it. I like the champions. I like the scaling. I like the Pantheon. All of it in isolation is good. Specifically with the way that these two comps have set themselves up against each other, your margin for error is so much thinner than it is for AL in this game, because if you miss position once, if your range isn't perfect, then all of a sudden your big advantage kind of goes out the window. If Victor and Senna just can't free hit in the fight, you know, if Neferi and Rise can play, it's hard. And so I think something I'm really going to be looking at for future games in this series, can NiP adapt in the way where, you know, maybe it's a little bit easier to execute, you know, maybe you don't need to position perfectly and keep your carry safe if you get pincered once the game's over. You know, maybe draft something that leaves a little bit more margin for error.
Take a look at these damage charts. A lot of members over 20k. And this was definitely a game that was like, okay, we're starting to pump out damage on both sides. Obviously, Doinb didn't quite get there. And it just felt like it took so long for him to get online. He really didn't feel like he made an impact at all in this game.
That's a huge difference from game number 1. I mean, Doinb was player of the game, rightfully so, on that Annie in game number 1. Game 2, he was invisible on this Victor. In fact, I think the most notable play that game was him getting caught out and really kind of costing his team a lot of pressure towards the end of that game. It really ended up being a problem for NiP, but everything looked so good for them at the start of this. This dive ends up going so terrible. You even have a couple of plays in the mid game that they're able to win. This felt like a game that NiP were ready to close out and take us to series point. They just couldn't quite hang on.
Yeah, I really thought after that play, I was like, oh man, are AL just going to fall apart at the seams? But I mean, these are veterans, right? Some of these guys. This is, these guys have been around a while, who have been in really big games, who understand what playoff pressure is like. I mean, the soul of the team, Tarzan, who is the guy who really carries Tabe's ideas into the game. Yes, it was a little rough at first, but it didn't deter him from trying to make plays, and finally started making hay on them. And I mean, that fight where he ended up getting the 4 kills was just, you knew it was going to be a game changer, and you just didn't see it until right here.
Yeah, I mean, this is the backbreaking moment. This is Tarzan being able to get onto every carry for NiP. Again, no range, no problem, right? If you can get on with Realm Warp, if you can use that engage that, quite frankly, even without a lot of the setups here, you're Leona Scion. You have plenty of ways to engage these fights. Even Sivir Ultimate can make that a lot easier for the Neferi to go. And then at this point onwards, this is the AL I remember. This wasn't a team that waited for their opportunity. They grabbed the game by the horns, and they finished it on their time and with their plays. They didn't wait for objectives. They just won the game. And I think that's the most encouraging sign for me. That's the AL that can really compete here in the LPL.
Yeah, this is a team that we obviously has had issues in Split 3, but you can still see it. You can still see the Split 2 form sometimes. If you close your left eye and you close your right eye, it looks pretty good sometimes. But seriously, there are times that, like this, where they get a lead, they know exactly what they need to do with it, as you said, and you start to think that maybe they can find that form back. It's just all about cleaning up that mid game. As you said, and honestly, some of their early games have just not been as robust in this particular series. I mean, obviously you had Tarzan doing a whole lot in that first game to set behind Nio, but even then, like, they were not convincingly winning in terms of gold or anything like that. And here in game 2, again, it took a while once they got kills for it to actually get the car started. It's like that, you're an East Coaster, so the winter time, trying to get the car started in the winter, it doesn't quite turn over. Are we really surprised? We didn't really need to talk about MVP much here.
There was no conversation to have. This was Tarzan's game. He was up 5,000 gold at the end of the game. This is what needs to happen. I have put so much responsibility on Tarzan, but I think it's rightfully so. I don't mean to keep pushing the point home, but really, I mean, this is a group of players that have, struggled to break through that glass ceiling. Tarzan has been the facilitator to help them get there, and once again in this game, he is the one that is proving that on any given day or on any given game, you have to treat them like the best team in the world.
The battle-tested Anyone's Legend have evened up the series at 1, which means we have a series on our hands, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go ahead and take a short break, and when we return, the Game 3 draft between AL and NiP. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you soon. Welcome back, everybody, to the unofficial LPL English broadcast and our best of 5 series between AL and NiP here in the lower bracket. The loser will go home. One of these losers would go home for a short amount of time until the regional gauntlet, but the other one, NiP that is, would be done for the entirety of 2025. And, you know, even if they are, K-Man, so far in 2 games, they've put up a damn good fight. 1-1, could have easily been 2-0.
It probably should have been 2-0 in terms of how a lot of that game number 2 went. They were in a great spot to close that out. A couple of mistakes here or there that end up really costing them, but I do want to give praise where it's due. Anyone's Legend looked like they were kind of out for the count. They looked dead in the water in the middle of game number 2. If they go down 0-2 in this series, you really are starting to panic. And instead of this team just mentally collapsing, we did see them rally. We did see them make the plays they needed to, stay aggressive, and they were able to take that game and tie up the series, give themselves a chance here now.
Yeah, and you know what? Let's take a look at these match predictions. As we can already see, Alk Battery, sadly, has been eliminated. But K-Man, I love that you said that, like, they looked like they were on death's doorstep and they got revived. Somehow, some way, Otacon had the revive passive once again.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we talked about it, and this is something that we'll have to pay attention to moving forward in the series, provided that...
I'm getting erased. Oh, no.
He got Thanos. He got Thanos,
I've been
bro.
Thanos snapped. Oh no. I'm gone.
But no, that's something that we need to pay attention to for the rest of the series is, can NiP keep the pressure on when they have a lead if they continue to have an opportunity where, obviously the goal was a little weird that game, but I think they were in the driver's seat, even with, Tarzan being as strong as he was. Can they continue to keep this pressure fully applied? Because I think if they get to that Otacon and they're able to really contest that play, this is an entirely different game.
I truly, if that stretch of 3 minutes doesn't happen for AL, they lose the game. It really came down to that small of an error, and it was bad macro from Ninjas in Pajamas. It was bad split-second decision-making, from a team that really has not thrived in that department. Now, AL has had their own struggles, making some mid-game decisions, making sure they're set up into proper spots, but it's really going to come down to who can avoid making a game-losing error. Unfortunately for NiP, they were the ones to do that in Game 2.
Yeah, they're just a little bit more prone to those sort of errors. And as we await the Game 3 draft, K-Man, I've got a lot of questions surrounding this mid lane now. Remember that Doinby gets a lot of champions banned out. Well, he's had a lot of champions picked. Ryze, he's not going to be able to play. He's not going to be able to play his Victor because he just played it. His Victor didn't have a great game, but he's been traditionally quite good on that champion. And now we're starting to really see the available pool of mid laners shrink. He has Annie that he cannot play anymore. This Orianna is gone. So now we're starting to get into, are we going to see the Doinby Dark technology come out? And I think for them to win, they're going to need something.
I mean, really, at this point, Doinby's champion pool kind of diverges into 2 camps, and you can kind of discuss them both separately. You've got the Taliyah, Galio, even Twisted Fate that are still available if you want to play the map. And then you've got all the assassins. You've got Akali, you've got Xylus, you've got LeBlanc that he would be willing to pull out if he wanted to carry a bit more. The direction that they go in for the rest of this series is really going to be telling. Do you want to play that assassin plus like Lee Sin potentially combo in the jungle? Because we've seen them pull that out consistently. Does that mean you take Leave out of the hyper carry role and force him to play something that can keep itself safe like an Ezreal? It opens up so many more questions. Drafts become so much harder from this point with NiP kind of being on the back foot.
Whatever you do, Doinby, I beg of you, do not play Lucian mid again, bro. That was no. That was Split 2, I think. I'm still scarred from that as an avid Lucian player. That was bad. I did not enjoy that. That did not spark joy. So keep that one off the table.
Let's not forget the Pantheon mid game. Let's not even call that one back out.
Yeah. At least that can't be played anymore. That one's off the table for good. In this series, so hopefully we won't see anything quite at that level, as it looks like we're getting locked in for the draft here, K-Man. I'm quite excited. This series, even though it's only 2 games old, has really delivered so far, and I hope it continues to do so. We're seeing some of the same bans come through. It looks like Shanks is never going to get that Azir. We're seeing AL ban out this Aurora, even though they've been so good with it. Don't want to give that over to NiP early.
Yeah, there are a couple of power picks that are still on the table. I think notably for me, Varus still surviving this long into
for now,
pick ban. Yeah, I think if he's not banned here, I would imagine that kind of should be the priority. Leave is a very good Varus player, and it offers a lot of flexibility. The main counter to it in Sivir is now off the board because of game number 2. Would make a lot of sense as a first pick if they wanted to go in that direction.
Yeah, this lets you have one of these team fight compositions too. Another one that's like, oh, at level 6, we spike really hard. We have like bot lane priority too. I think it would be a pretty good one. It looks like NiP's in the tank about this one a little bit, and they're going to lock in a B1 Renekton. I got to be honest with you. I'm not sure if that's the move.
Certainly a bit of a question mark for me. Solo Kill certainly can play the Renekton, but I don't like Renekton into Varus. I think that's still kind of a difficult thing to play out as long as your team ends up peeling for you if you are just leaving that up for Hope. And I think more relevant than maybe the matchup itself is just how much Hope got to play Varus at the beginning of this year when this team was finding success. This was kind of a go-to for AL. And again, I can't make the point enough that kind of the main counter to it, or at least the thing that people feel comfortable with in the Sivir, that you can spell shield a lot of the damage, and generally you push into the Varus to not allow it to take over. It's gone. This is going to be a difficult lane matchup, and that champion's going to scale.
One of his signature champions gets locked in, and that opens the door for a lot for AL. They could always end up picking a Karma with it, or you could end up going for Engage and having a strong level 6. This would be really great to enable this Trundle here and really prevent any full tank picks coming out from NiP.
Love Trundle in this situation. I think Trundle is very strong on the current patch, and I think it perfectly fits what Tarzan wants to do with the game. It can skirmish, but for the most part, it's there to make sure the team has as easy of a time as possible, taking a lot of these objectives and playing around a lot of these small, close-quarter skirmishes. You are giving up something like the Taliyah, though, over to Doingby. We talked about it. There are 2 directions to go. Giving him a macro threat is very dangerous, and you're pairing it with the Wukong, something we don't often see as a duo in the mid-jungle.
Yeah, and I think a big reason why is Trundle is so good against Xin Zhao until you get really late into the game where you're just kind of out-utility him a little bit. But early on, I mean, he is just so good into that champion, and it just feels like it'd be a really difficult pick to kind of deal with. And speaking of difficult picks, I mean, this is going to be tough for Shanks, right? You're going to have to walk over the Taliyah Legos. You're going to have to walk through a Cyclone from Wukong. It's going to be tough, but he's had a lot of good performances on this champion, so we're going to see him go back to it.
I have made this point quite clear on multiple of my casts across this and previous splits. I do not think the Akali into Taliyah matchup is good at all. LPL players continuously opt into it, so clearly they know something that I don't. But it's a matchup that I do think is quite difficult for Akali to really function in, at least as much as she would want. You want to play with this Trundle, you want to get moving. I think it's a bit more difficult to do that into a champion that not only shoves you in, but really negates a lot of your aggressive tendencies in the early game. But again, it does come down to how Shanks plays it. We see some bans coming out now. Misfortune is actually going to be the ban. Does make sense to start to take away some of these options that might be more aggressive in the 2v2. There are some very interesting supports left up that could be paired with Varus. Some common ones, some not so common ones. I'm not making the Pyke call out just yet, but certainly, is something to keep in mind. There are plenty of directions that AL can go in to complete this comp.
Looks like the direction again is toward that bot lane, as you mentioned, and now you got to do whatever you can to make sure that your lanes aren't getting pushed in, so Tarzan has room to operate and not get disrupted. He hasn't really had any issues with getting disrupted throughout this series so far. I can't imagine that's really going to change. Rakan getting taken off the board. No surprise, given the fact that you've got some potent team fighting with the Wukong, and NiP are running out of options to add more to it.
Yeah, I mean, you're really setting up the identity for what you want to try and force NiP into, and that's limiting their options outside of Wukong, basically diving your backline. You already don't really have a dive follower with Taliyah. It's going to be more difficult to be able to pilot that, and so you want to make sure that this just turns into a comp that, oh, well, you want to play through mid-game? That's fine. We'll have everything else, and I think the Rel in particular would really enable it, but yeah,
Renata, please. I think this is really good here. They might just go with the Nautilus because it's the best combo with Kai'Sa, but I think a Renata would be so hard for AL to play into. They're going to go with the Nautilus, opting to go with that dive, go with a bit more of an aggressive tilt to target out some of these champions that can't really protect themselves, like the Akali, like the Trundle. We're going to see Jace get locked in for Flandre, a signature champion of his, into this Renekton. We've got a lot of poke on the side of AL, but they are tying together this game with string. It's Kyle and it's Hope's ultimate that are the only ways that AL has at getting any sort of concordant fight together. Meanwhile, for NiP, I mean, this team is so synergistic.
How do you fight NiP in the mid game if you are AL? Like where is your like Jace is gonna hopefully be in an okay spot, but Jace into Renekton, while you can pressure out early, you know, theoretically that Renekton should be fine. I really like this draft for NiP. I think as long as they're able to generate leads individually in their own lanes, they actually should be able to push forward. You've got the dive component, of course, with the Wukong, Kai'Sa, Nautilus kind of trio, but you also have the macro threat that comes in with Taliyah and even Kai'Sa with that long range engage. You have plenty of different options for being able to control the map. I think AL is going to need to make sure that this Trundle is in a great spot in the early game. If Tarzan falls behind, which he hasn't yet, you know, it could be a bit of a problem.
The name of the game for NiP, fight on your power spikes. You leverage Taliyah's ability to make global plays happen. Wait until you got your Trinity Force from Wukong. Wait until you have your upgraded Q out of your Kai'Sa. And over on the other side for AL, you have to think that this team really needs grubs with Jace, with Akali side laning, with Trundle. Like, this is something that they must take care of.
Yeah, I mean, this comp is a siege comp. Make no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They are looking to take turrets here today. If they can get those resources and get them onto the right targets, they could have a chance.
欢迎来到英雄联盟。敌军还有30秒到达战场，碾碎。
Jio is ringing out just a bit here. So we're even up at 1 apiece in this series, K-Man. NiP fighting very, very hard. This is their chance. They've been the better team, I think, through 2 games.
It's all well and good to be the better team through 2 games. We'll see if they can be the better team through 3 as we continue to push forward here. Again, I think you were spot on. Their power spikes are so clear. NiP's direction in this game is very, very obvious. If they can get to that point and utilize their cooldowns to the fullest extent, they're going to be in a pretty good spot. There is a very small window, though, here in the early game where I think AL could potentially look for some danger. Not going to be anything crazy, though. Just going to be same side starts coming in here, as I believe both junglers are going to relatively be on the same pathway.
Both supports taking Summoner Spellbook, and I think it's going to matter a lot more in this particular lane because Kai'Sa Nautilus, one of the few Kai'Sa lanes that can really get aggressive early and fight really, really well. And we'll see how things shake out, as we're already seeing a little bit of trading going on. Leave taking the rough end of it. He will not be able to trigger that plasma.
Pretty standard 2v2 exchange here. We've seen so many resources burned to just get pressure, and Niket might be looking to do the same as Hope is kind of pushed out of this wave. Luckily, with that range he has, it should be just fine for him. Really like these lane states overall for NiP. I think they should be in a good spot to be able to really push forward in most circumstances. We actually see some of the win rates there. Hope 0 and 1. Don't let that fool you. This guy played a ton of Varus at the beginning of the year when this team was really finding a lot of success. Even if he hasn't played it as much here in Split 3, certainly a pick to watch out for AL.
We saw Tarzan 4 and 1 on that Trundle. That's going to be a really big one. And obviously, a lot of this game on his shoulders. A lot of the series has really been on his shoulders. He had that large lead in Game 1 that he couldn't convert on. The large lead in Game 2 that took a while to convert on, but finally did. And now, here in Game 3, having another carry champion doesn't really have a ton of tools to enable him. He's going to have to play these fights damn well.
Definitely going to need to. a lot rests on his shoulders, on his very important shoulders in this game. But for NiP, I think it's really just about staying the course. I think when you're talking about, you know, their setups are good. They were better for, you know, 20 minutes of that previous game. They made a pretty consequential error, and then it all kind of comes crumbling down. Tarzan just gets a bit too much gold, and things kind of break down. But
all right, here we go.
Potential mistakes like this.
Yeah, first gank here. Doinby is out of mana. Nio coming through, trying to help out. Big pillar, forcing the flash into Doinby. Nio trying to fight in the 2v1. Looking for Tarzan. Flashes on him. Gets first blood. Will Shanks be able to clean him up? Shanks flashes. Gets the kill. He's got double buffs, and he won't be able to get Doinby, but he trades out.
Yeah, that is a really consequential exchange because of the gold specifically going on to Shanks. First blood, though, going to Nio. That's very, very nice for NiP. It's all really just about what you can do with the Wukong. Kyle is here mid lane along with Niket to at least safely guard this teleport back into the lane, make sure these mid laners are in as safe of a spot as possible. They could be looking for more.
Oh, nice job there by Kyle to avoid the seismic shove, but he's still going to get hooked. The heal is going to be used. Shanks is going to stick around. He wants a piece of this. Niket forced to flash away. Shanks continuing to go, using the shuriken flip to try to leave. He's getting hit by a lot of rocks, and he's able to dodge out of the seismic shove.
Ooh, a very close exchange there. If Shanks had gotten hit by anything, he probably instantly dies. Well played by him to be able to escape on the Akali. But again, it's all this aggression being put into the mid lane, and yet the Akali is still in a great spot. Particularly in a better spot here.
Seismic shove.
Land.
Yep, here comes Niket trying to get in. Now you have to just guess, where is Shanks? Niket does not have flash. Looks like Solo Kill's starting to walk up here. Shanks is going to walk right into the Angry Crocodile. He's got double buffs. He has to make sure that they don't go to a really good target here, and it looks like they just will. It's a matter of who's actually going to get it. Shanks wasting as much time as he possibly can out of these guys. He will finally fall to Nio.
It is a solo kill, though, pun not intended, as the Renekton catches the wave under bot tier 1. Definitely one of the better case scenarios. Yes, it's giving a kill over to Wukong and giving him back double buffs, which is never ideal. Now you have a 2-kill Nio staring you down on that Wukong with all of that engage, but buying so much time for the rest of your team to be able to shove those waves in is really positive, as Niket made his way to the top side now, and we do get that very early swap here for the bot lanes going up top.
Yep, still 2 minutes until Grubs are up. This Dragon's up on the bottom side, but looks like it'll go untouched for a little bit of time. I think one of the big things about Nio picking up those first 2 kills is, look, he's already got his Phage. He's got money in the bank right now. He's going to get really close to this Trinity Force early on.
Yes.
Niket walking into an unwarded bush here. He will have a shield and his hook to get him to the wall, but taking so much damage.
Yeah, that's a lot coming in here. You do not want to be Nautilus walking into all of this AL damage for free. Varus is still going to be a massive problem. We have highlighted Hope for good reason, and that's because he is so important towards this comp for AL, and he has been so important for this team's success across this year. But we can see Dragon started up here by AL. They have full control over this river. Grub's still a minute and a half away. This should be a free objective for AL as long as they want it.
Yep, again, not a team that really has to worry too much about scaling. They have a lot of this early power. Obviously, Leave is going to take a little bit of time to get into the game. So, again, any free objectives you can get, sure, they do come at a little bit of cost of tempo. But this is just generally good here for AL. They're able to pick up the first, especially the Ocean Dragon. It does carry a lot of weight in the early game when you're still laning.
Yeah, I think people sometimes underestimate the value of those individual dragons that you can get early on, but certainly Ocean is one you're going to feel in a lot of these small exchanges, especially for these two teams that kind of want to play these fights a bit slower with the way that they have their comps set up. So we will see exactly how they want to utilize that. For now, it's just waiting that 45 seconds for those grubs to spawn. I imagine that will be the next major objective that these teams want to converge on.
Solo Kill down a little bit of experience, down a lot of CS right now as Flandra, again, so good on this Jace pick. You know, the tank Jace, he was excellent on it. Bit of a pioneer with it. Obviously, it's not the build anymore, but he still knows how to pilot the champion.
Definitely does know how to make it work. We will see exactly how much they can make it work in this game, because again, everything is just so knife's edgy for these two teams that you can't really afford to make a lot of the mistakes that have been made pretty consistently throughout the series in terms of positioning and really throughout the year for both of these teams. We do see the convergence happening now onto Grubs. Will be AL, at least in the area first. Hope and Kyle are making their way down. Potentially be a trap.
This is a problem. This is a problem. They are really out of sorts right now as they're going all in on Niket. Niket doesn't have his ultimate. Solo Kill's forced out to Shanks. Get into this backline, but he got knocked up. He couldn't fight through it. Feat of Warfare to NiP, and they're looking for more. Double knock-up. Hope got hooked. Leave got to the backline, but it's a 3v3. Tarzan chasing down Leave. He's trying to get away. Slice, dice, dead. Takes him out. 3v2. Solo Kill looking for more. Nio looking for more. The stun's on to Solo Kill. He's able to sustain for a little bit longer, and Kyle can't get out of there either. NiP win up another big fight.
Massive win there for NiP. Gold going on perfect targets, but we talk about getting to power spikes, getting to important metrics for the team. Well, I think NiP just did exactly that with the amount of gold that went in their pocket. They should be able to pick up all 3 of the grubs in this exchange. It's just not a good fight for AL. Tarzan is grossly out of position throughout a majority of this on the Trundle. We're going to get a chance to see it. Shanks obviously not accomplishing much either. Actually looks like AL might be able to pressure them off, getting only 2 of the grubs here for NiP. That's actually a huge turn and certainly does make the play at least a bit more bearable.
Yeah, but this is really fantastic for NiP. We talked about how... Oh, Doinby's stuck! Doinby's stuck! Kyle is coming! Doinby has his flash. He's going to use it a little late, but it's going to allow time for the rest of the team to get there. He's still alive. Niketa's coming through. He dodges out, but the hook is missed. Kyle will die on the backside. Weaver's wall coming down, cuts off Hope, and it was just a clever bait by Doinby.
It's all calculated. That's the world champ difference for Doinby in that play. You shouldn't be able to get away with that. You should not be able to get away with getting caught by that Trundle pillar, but they just don't have the damage to burst through him, and this game has gone from kind of okay to pretty bad to very, very bad very quickly. Niket looks like he's completely caught out of position. He's stunned into oblivion throughout this fight, but solo kill, immediately diving and creating that space onto the backline is hugely important. Once Shanks goes in, Nio realizes he has to pop the ultimate immediately, but that's the counter. That's the Wukong into Akali matchup. That's why this is so difficult for the Akali. Once Nio ends up getting the second knockup onto 2, Lee feels comfortable to dive the backline, and at this point, Tarzan can't do anything. He ends up getting stunned, and the damage comes through, and that Trundle's certainly not tanky enough to do anything just yet. And then we're going to get a replay of this play as well. Doinby just stepping up too far, missing a lot of his combo. Tarzan does trap him in the wall, but there's no teammates around. Hope takes a second to get here, and the flash is burned. It looks like it's going to be too late with Kyle following up, but because the arrow goes wide, he has just enough health to survive, and who's there but the Avengers? The rest of Ninjas in pajamas to be able to salvage the play and get a double kill for me.
Yeah, you see all smiles right now over on the NiP coaching staff. 8 kills to 3 and 11 minutes in, K-Man. 1,000 gold lead. A 4-1-4 Wukong who has Trinity Force. Leaves also on his first item. Remember, we said they should fight on these spikes. 30 seconds until this dragon is up, and I think it's a death wish if AL walk in.
Yeah, I mean, great call out on the spikes. They've hit them. The spikes are here. We have arrived at the point in the game where they need to fight and where they will dominate. Basically, any exchange that they go for, the power of Kaisa Wukong at this point in the game is strong, and Nio's showing it.
He's a level down. He doesn't really care. The subjugate, though, makes this a little bit more difficult than you'd initially think, but the problem is Tarzan is just on the wrong side of the map.
Yeah, solo kill is collapsing down. Tarzan realizes it's probably best to just give this a solo kill. Again, pun not intended.
Is he gonna execute?
There's no way.
I think he is.
Does he have the time? Oh, the smite.
Smited him like a minion, bro.
Absolutely
hang on.
Hilarious stuff. Yeah, no, Leaf's getting his back stopped. This is kind of a scary situation for the Kaisa.
Oh,
Doesn't
flash
matter.
play. Flash play onto the Varus here as Hope is in trouble. He's going to get knocked up with the depth charge. The root did come out from the Chains of Corruption, but you can't sidestep everything. Doinby gets his first.
It's a nightmare for anyone's legend. They are crumbling across the map. Shanks is going to be able to get some gold on the bottom here, but Dragon has spawned and your team is completely in disarray. Hope is still dead. Nio is in a great spot with that Triforce completed. 5-1-4 on this Wukong. 3-0-3 as well for Leave. We'll see if they want to pressure over this Dragon. I cannot imagine a world where AL can compete in this fight, but Leave yet to back.
Yeah, and not only that, Nio doesn't have Flash anymore, which will make a Cyclone a little bit harder. They spent that timer that they could have used on Dragon to go and kill Tarzan. So time will tell if that's worth it. We're seeing Flandre and Solo Kill go at it right now with the Dominus pop, which means that Solo Kill really isn't going to be a factor for this Dragon fight, given the fact that no TP means that I don't think he was going to in the first place. It's AL. They have purchase of the river right now. They're starting up this Dragon. And Leave is at half HP. He can't join.
Yeah, no, this is a really awkward fight for NiP. It's already down to 2K.
Yeah, they gave this away. They used the Dragon timer to kill the Tarzan, and AL now has 2 dragons.
Okay, well, there's your avenue back into the game for anyone's legend. It is going to be Cloud Soul on the Rift here. That is valuable for, you know, an Akali, a Varus, a Trundle. Those are very valuable champions to have that Cloud Soul. And utilizing that pressure, they're just going to siege down this bot lane tier 1. They're going to pick up the first turret, and, you know, they're going to actually pull back quite a bit of gold from this play.
Yeah, no doubt. Now they've got the lead on the feats, essentially. We're going to see what happens with this Rift Herald in a minute. Doinb and Nio trying to do what they can, but they just don't push nearly as hard as the other guys. And now it's going to be up to NiP and Solo Kill in this 3v2, trying to shove these guys off. NiP going to use his Ghost, get close to Shanks, but this turret is gone. And that's a lot of carries for AL, getting a lot of gold. But
Leave is here.
we could see a fight break out. We're seeing Nio solo mission on the top side to take this turret.
This is what I was calling out in draft when it came to anyone's Legends comp. They siege towers ridiculously fast. That really is kind of the point of this draft, is they need to make sure they're confident in side lanes and pushing forward. They are going to trade the tier 2s on opposite sides of the map, but overall, this is a good trade for AL to open things up and allow them to move around a bit more freely. See if they can take full advantage of it, but certainly not a play that I think they're going to be too frustrated by.
And now it's really up to Nio to carry this game. He's up 2,000 gold right now. He's probably going to get close to that second item, and everything is on his shoulders. If he misplays in any way, shape, or form, if he chooses an incorrect target, it's going to be very difficult for NiP to actually take over these fights now because of all the gold they got on key members for the side of AL.
It definitely becomes a bit more difficult. I will give them a bit of benefit of the doubt, though. It really just comes down to Ken Lee free hit. The moment he starts to hit that second, third item power spike, all of those problems become a little bit less important, especially if you are able to control the map. And so we find ourselves once again in a game state where it could go either way, Yanni. We've been asking for fun back and forth games. They are delivering in this series as Tarzan seemingly starts up the Rift Herald.
All right, it's going to reset as NiP are desperately trying to find a way in, but Flandra's poke is really starting to hurt a little bit. He only has the Spear of Shojin, but it is still putting in some work. Doinb's going to restart this Rift Herald here. A little bit of vision down, enough so that AL know what's going on, as we're still ping-ponging waves in the mid lane. Eve is a little low. I mean, every Varus arrow that hits, every Jace Shock Blast is just more than NiP can handle at times.
I mean, that's the thing. The poke on AL's comp is ridiculous. If they're able to just stand here,
we
oh,
go.
the interrupt!
There we go. Knockup is there too. NiP is very low. Leave once in. He ults, but he can't find Kyle. Solo kill. Forced to flash away topside. Wait, Weaver's wall coming through. A new challenger approaches, and it's Doinb. He'll force the flash out of Shanks.
Oh, a lot of chaos happening, Yanni. A lot of things going back and forth. AL are trying to siege down this mid lane tower, but it's...
Oh, wait, Leave. Leaves in trouble. He's forced the flash. Solo kill. Teleports in, and man, so many summoners getting burnt here. AL fighting very hard.
Oh, this game is picking up in terms of the action that we are getting. Both teams really looking to make their mark known. Herald's still the only objective to take on the map as we get a small replay of what happened on the top side here for this 1v1. The almost 1v1, I should say, for Shanks. But it's Rift Herald that's in control of NiP with all of that momentum moved out of the other way. This is down to 3k. There's no smite. Yeah,
NiP doesn't have smite. The eye is on the wrong side. I mean, can Kyle keep this aggroed? He's not going to be able to. And here comes the rest of NiP, but Doinb's at below half. He has no teleport.
There is so much happening right now on the Rift. A greedy play after greedy play happening for both of these teams, but it will just be the reset. I think amongst all the chaos, we've kind of forgotten this is a 3k gold lead for Ninjas in Pajamas as they continue to push forward. But look at those item spikes. That's where you can feel it. Second item Kai'Sa, second item Wukong. Those are really important for this upcoming fight. And right now, it makes it very difficult for AL to feel comfortable in these 5v5s. We'll see if they still want to opt in.
Should have that upgraded Q for a leave, and you know he's hitting hard and he's hitting fast. And he's hitting that Rift Herald. Here we go. Kyle Winston. Here's a hook going down. NiP's going to absorb that engage, and he's going to be able to flash out. That is Herald secured for NiP.
Yeah, AL trying to play both worlds here, understanding they can't go in and full engage because they lose the fight, wanting to try and take the mid lane tower, but Solo Kill doing a great job to negate that as well. Dragon spawning in 10 seconds. That's the next major objective. That's sole point for AL, and NiP immediately using the Herald for pressure.
Yeah, and it's such a good soul for them too, because they have to run at NiP So this would be really, really big for AL if they're able to secure it. Nio's going to drive this into the turret, but it's going to get pillared off. It's a nice job there by Tarzan. It still gets an NiP what they wanted. They have river control.
Yeah, they are immediately going to start up on this dragon. We will see how much AL wants to commit to this. I have a very hard time believing that they would have any chance in this fight if they went for it.
Tarzan looking to find a way and puts down his domain. Niket misses a hook, and he's getting engaged on. He will fall, but it's a trade for the dragon. Wait, NiP, this is aggressive movement here. Jace Shock Blast will force them off. Remember, they've got great push on the side of AL. They might be able to take this turret. Doinby's going to put down the Reaver's wall, though, and save the mid lane turret.
Lots of chaos happening. It's clear Niket is just giving his life in order to secure that dragon. Teleport coming in here, though. It's Nautilus, so it will just be pressure on the map. I feel like we finally
flower.
Might have hit. Yes, a flower as well.
It was a big flower.
Understate. Yes, and you can feed that. You can see that in the fact that Niket is almost the same level as Kyle on the other side of this. But as we move forward, we're not done with objectives, Yanni. We are looking at a 15-second Otacon timer. Mantra by himself down on the bottom side here, but that is the next major objective. And with the chaos that we've seen already in this game, in this series, somehow I don't imagine that that's going to be given over without a fight.
The one worry that I have for NiP here is they really haven't expanded their lead. You know, this is their bread and butter. You get Nio on a carry, you get Leave on a hyper carry, but because you're not expanding your lead, you're still sort of waiting for Kai'Sa to really hit that critical mass. The 2 items is great. Like, you're going to be really happy with that. You can definitely fight and you have play here, but it is worrisome that you're still not at the point where it's an overwhelmingly favored fight for you unless Nio is hitting these big cycles.
Certainly is kind of scary. I think your engage is okay, but honestly, I think this is a team that really would thrive in a side lane that wants to play around Talia's macro, and Wukong and Renekton being able to push these waves quickly can become a bit more difficult when you're looking at another comp that actually does really well into those side lanes, maybe from a bit further range. So again, I think the important thing here is just making sure that whatever decision you commit to is commit to, and that everything else is secondary. You don't want to get caught in between trying to make a couple of plays, something that NiP has been on the unfortunate end of multiple times this year.
Something that Leave has been on the unfortunate end of multiple times this year. He has been a guy that has been called out around this time in the game. He does have Cleanse, and there's not too many pick tools for AL, but he has been much maligned with his positioning at times. There's one thing to watch out for is we're going to see a global play here with the Weaver's Wall, but Shanks is able to get over the other side of the wall.
Yeah, it's tough, because that's kind of your main tool for at least pressuring things out. It allows you to start up the Otacon, but it certainly doesn't separate the fight. Solo Kill's by himself. He's going to get to this fight last.
Leave's got big damage on it, but right now Leave is kind of not with the rest of his team. Teleport's coming in from Solo Kill on the flank side. Kyle going to give big engage. Leave flashing away toward his teammate. Otacon is stolen away by anyone's legend, and Leave is all alone with Shanks, and he's dead. Kyle still alive. Hope, full HP, leading the charge with Tarzan. Tarzan can't. No, he does close out on a kill. And now a hook onto Hope. It's a 3v3. Here we go. Big flash down. Shanks rejoins, and Flandre gets the kill. Doinby running out of HP, flashes away, but it's just Doinby. There's a hook. There's a flash, and Flandre and Shanks clean up the fight. AL never say die.
I did not think it was possible, Yanni, but AL absolutely destroy this fight and get themselves back in control of this game. It's brilliantly played by them. A lot of mistakes coming in from NiP, who just cannot hang on to their lead, but at the end of the day, the smite comes down from Tarzan. They steal away the Otacon and win the fight itself. You are looking at an 11 flower petal lead for AL. You are looking at a ton of gold in the pocket of the main carries. That was really
Look
their
at
only
Leave in this
problem.
fight.
And the
Look at what
game
happens.
state. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Leave is the carry here, and Kyle immediately goes in, full engages. Leave has to flash out to stay as safe as possible. He feels like he's in an okay spot with Solo Kill available, but Shanks just completely separating him by flashing in. Everybody has abandoned their AD carry, and at this point, the fight's not going all that well on the other side either. Tarzan is so strong on this Trundle. This champion is really effective in his role right now. He's able to take down Nio on this Wukong, and even with the hook landing onto Hope here, Hope doesn't need to kite. They have so much damage, and there's so little coming in from NiP that he can basically stay in melee range as long as Flandra is eating those Talia Qs, and at this point, very easy to keep going. He even gets hit by another hook just for good measure. It does not matter. AL get themselves back in the driver's seat of this game.
Tabe is tying his belt back up, you know, after AL winning that fight big time, and now we're even on gold. But it feels like, once again, you get around this time of the game and AL just find a way to take over. We have Dragon up on the map. We have Leave once again all alone, only has Cleanse. He'll be able to link up with the rest of his team, but I mean, that fight, losing that is so killer and really takes the wind out of the sails of NiP.
Gold is completely even as this Dragon is started. Shanks is on a huge, huge flank. That could be spotted pretty early here. We will see how NiP want to play.
They have no idea.
Already chunked.
They have no idea right now. Yeah, they have no idea where Shanks is. But Shanks is taking a long time to actually get there. His Dragon is getting low. So is Nikkei. It's taken by AL. They're on 3 Dragons. Here we go. Shanks on this back line, looking to make plays. And here we go. Everybody is just corralled. It was just enough by Kyle. And Shanks is on janitor duty. He cleans up. AL cleans up. 25 minutes into the game. And the world is theirs and the pings are on Baron.
Wouldn't you know it, Yanni? All it takes is one massive mistake in a fight from NiP for the game to completely shift. It is a terrible setup here for NiP. Even if they get the Dragon, they're in a terrible spot to fight that 5v5 in such an enclosed space. Even with full engaging onto Kyle, he gets more than enough of the CC off to win that fight. And now it's not only Dragon, sole point for AL, it's Baron as well, in a game that looked like it was in NiP's control, just like game number 2 has slipped out of their hands as quickly as they got it.
We talked about how Nio, because of his gold lead and because NiP didn't really build upon it, he needed to be the guy. He lost the Otacon, he loses this Dragon, and he hasn't been overly impactful in this game ever since he had that lead.
Yeah, it truly is just an unfortunate circumstance. It just comes down, it's a 50-50 completely. I blame that on NiP. Oh. You need to be at least attempting to zone this Tarzan. Everything going wrong for Nio in this fight, but as you watch Kyle just get full targeted, flash in, get the whole ult off to set up for Shanks, to set up for Flandra. At this point, Hope very easily free hitting on the Wukong on the back line. It just gets harder and harder, and for the first time in this game, AL has a true gold lead to their name, and they are sieging down with Baron bot.
The bell is beginning to toll for NiP, K-Man. As remember, we said that AL sieges so well. You've got the poke from the Varus, you got the poke from the Jace, and once Tarzan starts knocking on these turrets, they fall mighty quick.
You have so much range to be able to siege down these turrets. As long as you are able to make sure that you don't make a catastrophic mistake, this should be fine. This could be game. Leave not even here. He's taking that bot lane tier 1. We'll see if AL capitalize on that, but right now their priorities are the inhibitors.
I mean, I think you have to do that if you're Leave, because you need this Hexblade. You need to get your hyper carry online to as many items as possible. I do wonder if there's going to be a final fight in this base, and it looks like Nio's going to go for it. Here we go, all on top of Tarzan. They knock him again. They manage to take him down. Here we go, another one. They find Kyle. It's a 5v3. To Shanks one more. The poke is there. Shanks getting very close to getting a kill, but he won't. And mercifully, NiP bat away AL.
It's an overstep. That's what you can't really do if you're AL. The right positioning there ends the game. They just don't have it. Tarzan ends up being a little bit too far forward, gets caught by the seismic shove from Doingby, and he goes down. For now, that will just be a bit of a consolation prize. Baron's still active at the very least for the next minute. I don't believe that it will get them too much, but overall, still a good play for NiP and basically equalizes that Baron you gave up.
It's still a lot of map control here for AL with that pushing wave in the mid lane. It is in the mid lane. It could always be worse. Usually in the top lane or bottom lane, it causes a bit more of a problem. Baron going to expire in about 30 seconds. We have the next Dragon in about a minute 30 as AL are looking for that soul. Remember, one of the biggest problems of AL was they have to run at NiP, and a Cloud Soul will alleviate those issues.
Definitely, that is a huge boon towards AL in this game, and I think the big difference in this game between game number 2 is game number 2 felt so much more hopeless for AL in terms of how they were constructed. This game definitely feels a lot more in their control, and it never really felt like they were out of it. They're just executing better as Tarzan walking in to try and steal away the red will not be successful, but, you know, why not? Everything on the map should be yours at this point. And AL is going to continue to pressure, but you're right, the timer is 1 minute. What can NiP do to set up until then?
And the worst part is, I think if you go all in for it and you lose the fight, the game's over. If you lose the soul, you're put in a really tough spot. It's not immediately over, but it opens the door for so many more plays for AL that will make it hard to kind of sit and wait for an Elder Dragon. That is neither here nor there. That is still a little bit of ways away. 30 seconds, as you said. NiP doing what they can here in the mid lane, here in the bot lane. Their bot side jungle to get more vision down. Try to clear out as much as they can.
They need to do as best as they can to get vision and to deny vision around this area. It's so important for NiP to, at the very least, have the ability to set themselves up correctly. Tarzan gonna take some damage at the start of this fight, but Flandra in the area, basically inconsequential, but that could give NiP the avenue they need to walk up.
Shanks once again on a flank here. A lot of friendly wards. His Sixth Sense will spot out one. So NiP are aware that Shanks is on a flank. Here we go. We're going to have another dragon fight. They can't hook. Flashes out Redemption, but Nio is stuck in the pit. Nio is low. He's got nowhere to go. He is dead. 5v4. Hook goes wide. NiP are forced to back away, but Shank says, let's fight! Kael goes in! AL and Flandra drop the hammer down! Doinby being chased by Tarzan. Leave has run out of space, and anyone's legend will take a 2-1 series lead.
Anyone's legend fire back with a vengeance after some tumultuous early games. They're able to close this out and take the lead in this series for the first time.
Wow, K-Man. This series has continued to deliver over and over and over again. Another banger, fun, enjoyable game to watch. It's not the cleanest, but sometimes you just gotta accept that the LPL is going to be a little messy at times. And anyone's legend on match point now over NiP, who are fighting for all they're worth.
This is what you sign up for, doing the LPL, watching the LPL, you know, everybody in chat, this is what we want. This is what we have been dreaming of, these back and forth fun series. Yeah, it's not clean. Yeah, it's chaotic. Yeah, there's a lot of problems, but you know what? Like, both of these teams, I think, are showcasing why they're in the playoffs, why these players have so much pedigree behind them, and even if you see some of those mistakes behind them, I think we are seeing some really fun League of Legends here today.
Yeah, it's really tough to see, but I mean, they are at least giving it all they got, and you know, they are one game away from their season ending, their 2025 going out, not with a bang, but with a whimper, K-Man. And anyone's legends, like that old junker car that refuses to die, they are still trucking along. I mean, this is just, it's still not the anyone's legend that we really expected to see. I'm gonna be honest, they 3-1 the series, even if they cleanly win game 4, this series does not inspire confidence. Panic meter, where are you at?
I'm worse than I was going into the day. I definitely will say that. I don't feel better about AL right now than I did going in to, you know, the day of games here, but I will say, like, at the very least, this team has shown resilience that they did not show against Weibo, that they did not show against some of their opponents in the regular season when they made these mistakes and got behind against teams like they have against NiP in this series. They've kind of been a team to roll over and die. Not so much here. They're able to keep their composure. And at the very least, I think you're seeing some really big performances out of players like Tarzan and Shanks that needed to step up here today.
Without a doubt. And taking a look at the side of NiP, it's just those fights at the objectives, that Otacon fight that absolutely sunk them. You could see it before it happened. You could see Leaf step up a little bit too far, not be on the same side of his team, and he just knew that he was going to get split up somehow. And I mean, that's all AL had to do was just, you know, find a crack in the citadel that they had around that Otacon, and they did. They exploited it. They split it apart, and when you've been tanking Otacon that long, all that shred, it's just not something that you can survive. And Otacon claims another game for a team. So we take a look at the damage charts. Flandra, a lot of that poke landing. We didn't really talk about him a whole lot, but that poke was good in those fights. Certainly did his thing, but it felt like Shank's flanks were the ones that really busted this game open.
Yeah, I mean, Shanks was excellent here on the Akali. Truly one of his better games of the tournament up until this point. But that damage chart, I think, does showcase, okay, maybe AL did understand, like, their win condition. Because there were times where it felt a little bit confusing, like, they're Jace Varus. Like, do you understand that you are the poke comp? Like, you need to be able to generate that, tempo, and you need to get to objectives a little bit quicker. Once they started doing that, things became so much easier, and that allowed Shanks to start diving onto the backline. When you're starting every fight with your tanks at half health, all of a sudden an Akali becomes a lot more dangerous.
Yeah, it becomes so hard to really fight through that. And yet again, just another game where NiP has the early lead. They look like the better team, and they just aren't able to convert. And they have this issue at this objective, and the decision making is just not all there. The light's getting a little bit too bright for these guys. But man, I mean, that early game, that first 20 some odd minutes, it was so good. But again, the biggest issue was that they just could not further that lead. That 3,000 gold lead, that's where the stall became the problem.
Let's make it clear, if games ended at 20 minutes, this is a 3-0 NiP. Like, that's just the way that it's gone. AL has had to climb their way back into both of their wins in this series, and that's obviously to the credit of AL, and obviously that's a problem of NiP, but we should give NiP at least some flowers. This team has consistently been able to outplay AL in the early game, and all they really need to do, because they're not out of this series, all they need to do is moments like this, they need to clean this up. If this fight goes slightly different, if the fight in the bot lane from game 2 goes slightly different, we're looking at a completely different series. As much as it can feel like you're dead in the water against the defending champions if you're ninjas in pajamas, you've got 2 more games to push this into upset territory, and you've shown everything you need to show that it showcases that is possible for you.
More big champions getting taken away, K-Man. That'll be a fun thing to check out when we go to the Game 4 draft. K-Man, who's your MVP for this game?
That's tough, man. There are so many.
I gotta give it to Shanks personally.
I think Shanks. I really want to give a shout out to Kyle. I think he was excellent this game on the rel. There were multiple really phenomenal engages coming out from him.
We're gonna see one in just a moment, I think.
Yes, we definitely are going to see another one. So, I mean, this was one where he just lands the full combo. Yes, he dies. Who cares? He gets everything off that he needs to. At least in a moment. I thought we were on the later fight. That is my apologies there, but definitely one of those games where it's just, it's really easy to play when you have such consistent setup, such good poke, and then great follow through with Shanks. It's everybody doing their part.
Yeah, honestly, I think the featured matchup of that game was Nio versus that wall at the Dragon. That was 2 times he was not able to go over the wall. The more I see these fights and the more I think about that game, the more I'm with you on the Kyle MVP vote. I think if he gave it to Shanks, it would be totally fine. But, supports need love too. And he certainly was a big glue guy here. It just feels like because, Shanks made that play at the Otacon that killed Leave and really felt like that was the turning point of the game. And he had that big flank a couple of times, a couple big flanks that were really exclamation points, that it's a little flashier. That could be why. But I'm with you. If either of those two, I'm happy. We're good. These are ethical MVPs.
Yes, ethical MVPs indeed. I think basically everybody on AL really performed well down the stretch. We will see who gets it, though. It's going to be Shanks. So, Flash wins. We've learned that. You make the flashy plays, you win player of the game. I can't be mad at Shanks winning this. He had multiple pop-off team fights. The Shanks flanks in this game were absolutely massive, and his Akali has really been a really big boost, I would say, to AL over the course of this run.
Without a doubt, K-Man. And now NiP backs against the wall, season on the line, year on the line, going into Game 4. We're going to go ahead and take a break. And when we return, AL looking to finish off the series while NiP trying to stay alive. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you soon. Welcome back, everybody, to what could be our final game of the series today. The final game for NiP's year. Anyone's Legend up 2-1 over NiP in a series that very easily could have been an NiP 3-0. In Game 2 and Game 3, they had leads, they had advantages, they were unable to close them out. Will Game 4 be the same, K-Man, or will it be what I think is going to happen? You know what happens in these kind of games. The stomp looms.
We definitely know that Game 4, team that's supposed to win up, 3-2-1, that's the stomp incoming. But I'm going to amend a statement you made just a little bit. It's not that NiP could have won those games. They should have won those games. They absolutely had every lead and advantage they needed to close out those games. And at this point, it's just asking the question, can you clean up the mistakes? Are you going to force Otacon and lose the game again? Are you going to overstay in the bot lane and lose the game again? These small errors that have cost you everything, if you clean those up, the leads that they've been able to generate in all 3 games, not 1, not 2, all 3 have been good enough to win games in this series.
I fear the ninjas are sneaking around in footy pajamas, and unfortunately, they are slipping right before they're able to escape. And this costing them games. Now, K-Man, it's time to talk about Game 4 draft, because things are going to get real spicy all of a sudden with a couple more picks off the board. We always see that Doinby draws multiple bans. We saw in that last game, Aurora was banned by NiP, by AL. We saw Galio get banned. We saw Azir get banned. I mean, the available pool of mid laners is rapidly shrinking. We know a couple of back pocket picks. We know that Kassadin's a back pocket pick for Shanks. We've seen Morgana kind of make the rounds a little bit. I'm curious to see if we'll see that come out in Game 4. I don't necessarily know if it's particularly good, but it is something to note.
I think I'm definitely looking at kind of the styles that both of them have gone towards in games that are relevant and important, these closeout games in series like this. Shanks really prefers these assassins. We saw the Akali in Game 3 and it was incredibly successful. You mentioned the Kassadin, but something like the LeBlanc, the Sylas could very much be on the table. That's the case for Doinby as well. He really likes the Sylas once his champion pool starts to get pinched a little bit more, but there are other options available. You mentioned the Galio, but sneakily, if they want to go back to that macro style that's allowed them to open up the map, the Twisted Fate would probably be the pick in that direction. It's really just about what kind of comp they want to build.
I like the shout that you had about Shanks as LeBlanc. He played it in the closeout game against Weibo, and while they didn't win, I thought he played pretty well. There were no negative highlights from that series for our little highlight reel earlier, and unfortunately for him, there were just it was a bit of a team gap in that game, not gonna lie. I think Shanks played incredibly well. I think LeBlanc would be a pretty sick pick here and would really fit in with early aggression for AL. It just feels like they continue to lose these early games, and that needs to change, because you cannot keep winning games like this. Like, not even just against NiP, but against some of these better teams that you're gonna face down the line. I mean, if you win, you're playing against IG. If you play like this against IG will beat you 2-0 in a best of 5. Like, that's how bad the beatdown's gonna be.
Yeah, you can't show up against Rookie, the Shy, Gala, Mako, Wei, and do this. You're going to get cooked off the map. And so it's really just about proving to yourself, like, hey, we're still the AL we remember. Because that was the whole point of this series in the first place. We were talking about, I predicted AL 3-0 because I needed to see them do that. Right now, they need to survive. And they have the tools necessary to survive. But I think there are going to be some interesting things thrown out here. I think that there are a lot of early game junglers that AL has not gone towards. But I talked about this a bit off screen. I would love to see Tarzan on a facilitator in this one, as we see those mid lane bans come out from AL. 3 mid lane bans. Well, 2.5. Aurora potentially a top laner as well. But Galio, Aurora, Sylas taken off the board alongside the Azir. The priority on things like LeBlanc have gone through the roof in a series like this because of these bans. But you could say similar things for some of the more passive picks as well. Somehow Alistar has made it to Game 4, and it will be the first pick here for NiP.
Yeah, one of the champions has kind of fallen off in priority a little bit, and that Sylas ban does allow for it to come through. So we'll see what they want to pair up in the bottom lane with it. I really think some of these aggressive lanes are quite good with the Alistar. I do wonder what we'll really see. I like a Tristana with an Alistar. That's just me personally. I'm curious to see what we'll have come out here. Misfortune. Listen, these AD carries are really starting to get mighty thin too when it comes to playable AD carries. So I think having an aggressive bot lane is really good for AL. Again, we want them to be a little bit stronger early in the game, and that's one way to do it.
Yep, going back to some old reliable picks here for these individual players. We talked about the Varus being kind of a 0-1, only picked once across the split so far for Hope. That's because he played a lot last split. Misfortune's in a very similar spot. The Yorick would also be that if they ended up going for it. But it's going to be the Rakan to pair up with the Misfortune. It does guarantee at least a more consistent bullet time if you can catch that alongside the Charm. But definitely a bit more difficult to execute than raw Lockdown that you perhaps would get earlier on in the series. But with the supports available, taking away, a combo that could be pretty dangerous to play against on the other side makes sense here.
Think of more dive buddies that could work with this Rakan a little bit later. Potentially Nocturne, Vi is still on the table. We are going to see a Jax come through here, so it's going to be exceedingly difficult to try to dive into this NiP team. I think that a Smolder would be quite good, but it does mean that you're really giving up a lot of pressure to this Misfortune.
It's leave, though. I mean, that's what he wants, right? He wants the hyper carry.
Signature
He
champ.
wants the late game. Smolder is locked. Smolder Alistair is confirmed as the bot lane, and I'm not quite sure I would endorse this pick for other teams, but certainly for NiP, it makes sense stylistically. I think Hope's going to be in a great spot to really push this game forward, and Cassante will be the answer on the top side to the Jax here. Another pick that I think is relatively good overall. AL has a very strong start to the draft, but this jungle mid has meant everything so far in this series. How will they close it out? Are we getting 5 mid lane bans from AL?
And more mid lane bans coming out here, K-Man, and I mean, this is just going to be really rough on both of our mid laners. One thing to note is, I like this early Jax from NiP because it does maintain a bit of a flex coming out here. With Xin still being on the board, AL could look to take him out of the second half of bans, and they could put Nio on this champion. It would be another, Jackson is not quite hyper carry, but it would be another carry into late game scaling Smolder, and with this Vi ban first, I think that's the indicator.
You think they're greedy enough to pick Viego here? You think they have the balls to bring that one out here in game number 4? Because I certainly think it's on the table. It's something to watch out for, and I wouldn't really hate it all that much, but yeah, we will see.
What else do they ban at this point? Oh, they banned the Viego.
Well, there goes my plan. It's thrown out the window. I guess I spoke a little bit too loud. They heard me over there.
Damn, bro, you gotta quiet down a little bit,
Yeah.
You can't give away all the secrets, especially to a guy like Tabe. That was many, many years ago, but that was still so funny. All right, this is just, I'm not getting baited by that. This is generally, I think, what we're expecting to see, the Xin to come through, and that would force NiP to pick a different top laner here. One of the options that is available is Gwen into a Cassante if they want it.
Would be kind of the obvious pick here, unless they have a different direction they want to go with the way that they want to play the comp, and I think Gwen fits perfectly with what they've set up. Smolder Gwen is absolutely terrifying to play into, and then you can move this Jax for Nio. Of course, it's actually going to be much more aggressive than that. We are not seeing a Gwen. We are seeing an Olaf get locked in here. Technically, this is still flexible, and it's going to be Karma as well for the Smolder. Karma mid for Doingby, a classic Doingby pick from a long time ago. I'm talking like 2019, Doingby pulling out the Karma mid. Oh, this game has gotten so much more fun. If this is indeed NiP's last life, they are using it wisely.
And, Doingby has so many good targets to shield in this game. Like, he can, Jax, he's got the Olaf. He can speed up Alistar if you need to. Yes, Karma mid is not the menace it once was. Speaking of, Kassadin, also not the menace it once was, but still an incredibly good champion. Shanks says, in game point, game 4, give me this Kassadin. And with that shield that you're going to get, it will be a little bit harder for Doingby to bully him.
I don't want to point out a game 4 that maybe has already happened at this tournament, but game 4 of AL versus Weibo Gaming, you are staring down Shanks playing Kassadin, and while it is a Morgana mid on the other side, it's this idea, this identity of a mid laner that's going to be a bit more supportive to enable a very aggressive jungler, in this case the Olaf, and then a hyper carry bot lane. In that game, Shanks popped off on the Kassadin, was able to get going in the early game. They had no way to stop him. I think if Xin Zhao Misfortune can team up early, it's going to be really difficult. This game has to get snowballed by NiP. They can't afford to go late, even with the Smolder. I don't think you can afford to, have this Olaf play from behind. If you let Kassadin scale with the setup that they have on their side, I think things get dangerous very fast for them.
Yeah, it's just your late game insurance policy. And if you're AL, you need to make sure that Shanks' conditions are perfect, because it's going to be so hard for them to go after this guy with Jax, with Olaf. I mean, Olaf can only sustain his ultimate when he's hitting people, and it's so hard to stick on a Kassadin, right? So as long as he doesn't get ganked pre-6, you're able to keep the game safe for him. You're going to be in such a good spot. Notably, this is going to be Olaf in the jungle, so we're not going to have as much guaranteed CC coming through as we're on Summoner's Rift. It could be NiP's last game of the year. Let's do it.
There's something so poetic, Yanni, about potentially the final game of the year for NiP being Olaf Karma Smolder. It just feels so apropos to everything that they have built for themselves throughout the entire year. They will now get a chance to prove that this style that has been effective for them can be effective against the highest of competition. But they need to get this set up. We properly called it out. You properly called it out in the pregame. Nio is huge in this game on the Olaf, but it could start as early as now.
Okay, Counter-Strike. Gonna go down onto Tarzan. Here comes Nio. Tarzan, where's the flash over the wall? Flodger still wants this fight. That slow is coming out. He'll be able to dash away, but NiP have full control of this topside jungle. A really nice job by them. We're gonna see Tarzan loop around. It's on vision. Wants to contest these chickens. All right, who's going to get it? Shanks is walking up first. Tarzan gets it first. Nio forced to ghost. He's out of there. And a really great start for AL.
Yeah, I mean, that completely changes the game. If Nio is able to get that, all of a sudden, everything we had talked about really gets put into fruition. I would be concerned here for Nio, but we've already seen him behind early on at level 1 in the jungle in 2 different games of this series, and he's been able to recover both. I imagine he will at the very least be close here, but that first Olaf game of the split coming through for him, he will have to make it count. Both junglers going to be at the very least in similar positions, so neither going to get set behind too much as we see this Misfortune predictably shoving in.
And before we really get into the nitty-gritty of things, we want to thank our sponsor, prodiff. If you want to play like the pros in your own solo queue games, you can take the chance to learn directly from pros themselves. Doesn't matter your rank, because the best way to start climbing is to schedule a coaching session at prodiff.gg. You'll be able to work one-on-one with an active or recent player in the NACL, the ERLs, or the LTA, and they will teach you to play like a pro. Get personalized coaching for the pros today at prodiff.gg by using code LPL10 at checkout to save 10% and support the LPL English broadcast. K-Man. So far, Nio just getting the short end of the stick early on when it comes to the jungle. Tarzan has had so many advantages, and yet it has not yielded early game leads. Will we see a difference in game 4?
Well, we're going to see right now as Tarzan makes his way down to the red buff here. Nio's at half health. This is very dangerous.
I smell first blood coming through. Nio's got nowhere to go. He gets shielded. Tarzan with the re-engage and first blood to the AL jungler.
Massive from Tarzan, perfectly timed from him. He's mapped out Nio's pathing to a perfect degree, understands exactly the health that he's going to be at, and really puts this Olaf into a bad spot. I talked about AL already having a gigantic scaling advantage because despite the fact that you have Smolder on the other side, it's really hard to deal with this Kassadin. Well, that's gotten even worse. Niket over the wall.
The desperation is, you can smell it from NiP. Doinby getting in there fast. They know they have to try to save this game, and it's going to be a 4v4 all-out brawl. Tarzan low, Shanks low, Nio dead, Niket with a triple knockup, but he can't save him. AL are going to stomp NiP into the dirt here in game 4. Doinby is dead. Double kill for Hope. AL on top.
Anyone's legend for the first time in this series. They are able to get a gigantic early game lead, and this might be one that they do not look back from. 2-0 and 2 for Tarzan, 2-0 and 1 for Hope. This is as good of a start as you could possibly ask for a team with a Kassadin, and everything is falling apart for NiP. The desperation is there, the nerves are clearly there for this team, and they just can't respond. It's a really unfortunate sight, but right now, AL, it's their game to lose.
The last global win for Karma, you saw it down there, and I have a feeling that we're not going to see another one. Take a look at this replay again, K-Man. I mean, it just feels like they didn't need to do this.
There is no justification for this play being made. They burned 2 flashes to make it work. Of course, one is Niket's, but Doinby burning flash to get in is miserably bad. Nio has no damage at this point in the game. It's really easy, even with the Kassadin at half health at the start of this fight, to peel it off. And at this point, AL can just run things. It's super simple. You're fighting into Misfortune, Rakan, Xinjiao early on in the game. Of course you're not going to be able to win it. That's my reaction.
Yeah, that was mine too, man. I mean, I guess game 4 here, NiP took some inspiration from an old NA legend that once said, pick me whatever, let's just lose in peace. 4 kills to nothing, a 2,000 gold lead, less than 6 minutes into the game. Your Olaf is in the dirt. You're missing summoners on so many guys. It's just going to be a mountain to climb. If NiP win this game, I'm willing to say it now, it will be a miracle.
Yeah, it really would take quite a lot for them to come back against what has been generated for AL as they now take down this first dragon of the game. Still 2 minutes until Grubs, by the way. No real contest or concern to be set up for that. There's really no way to deal with that. The biggest problem is where the kills went. Because if you got kills on the Kassadin, yes, that's going to be really scary late game. But like, you can probably still deal with that in the early game. You can probably still run through kind of the wall. It went on Misfortune Xinjiao. Good luck fighting at Grubs. If you have to fight to kill Misfortune, to kill Xinjiao, it just becomes so much more difficult here as they continue to pressure down on the bot side.
You can see the BF sword chunking out Solo Kill. He's got a cloth armor, he's got a Doran shield, and that was just one auto attack. Yeah, it's a love tap, but I mean, it's still so much right now. We've swapped up the lanes here just to try to leave anything that you can. I mean, that has to be the new strategy for NiP, is now you're banking everything on leave.
I mean, you already kind of were in a sense, but now Nio is a non-factor on this Olaf, and he might be even worse. Tarzan is here. Doesn't have his team with him just yet, but Shanks can easily collapse on this. It's just going to be more problems. Nio going to waste at least a bit of time, but not going to walk himself into his death. Still 0-2 Olaf feels very, very bad in this game state. We'll see how he can recover. Nio has shown so many nerves over the course of this series. I think it's really coming out here.
Yeah, it's been really, really difficult. A lot of good play out of Nio, and the last couple of games he just has not been able to handle it under the pressure, K-Man, and that has continued here into game 4, an 0-2 start. It is about as bad as it could be. Here comes Flandra with the teleport, and as Kyle will escort him, Kyle has his own teleport. I'm sure he'll use it. He'll go to the mid lane. We're going to see Niket teleport mid as well, as there's just not much for NiP to do right now other than farm up on these guys. I mean, they don't even have spikes that are like, okay, they're level 6, they can fight here. I mean, it's never going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing you're looking at in the next 5 to 10 minutes that's playable for NiP. You need to make sure that you can stay safe, but start stacking up. That's the goal here. Onto the Smolder. Grebs are started. NiP are in the area. If they contest this, this could either be really good or really, really bad.
Shanks is prepping that Rift Walk right now. Hope forced the flash away. He's got the bullet time in the back pocket. Kyle taking a big chunk here. Shanks is going to Rift Walk away from the chain. 1 grub to AL. As we continue to play a game of chicken here. Knockups are coming through. Bullet time over the top. Here comes Jax on the backside, taking out Kyle, but here to help. And Doinby is in trouble. Doinby is dead. Leave's going to be the next target. Shanks cannot Rift Walk out of there, but Solo Kill will be able to at least pick up the second grub for NiP, but it's still a big win for AL.
Yeah, AL win despite Solo Kill's best efforts in that fight. He is absolutely massive on the Jax. He even picks up the grub as well to really cement that it's a good play for NiP to make, considering the game state. But if that's the good play to make, things are going quite poor for your team. As we see the setup here, Tarzan feels aggressive enough to just dive in. But the knockup's actually really, really nice coming out from the Rakan. The bullet time, while strong, is not too strong. And Solo Kill immediately is able to get onto Kyle and is able to continue to push the fight forward. At this point, he's targeting Shanks. He's able to get the Kassadin down. Tarzan's ripping through the backline, but there's really not much you can do about that. At this point, Solo Kill realizes, hey, if I get 2 kills and the grub, am I going to consider that all right? He definitely considers that to be an okay trade, even if the gold difference between these two teams might not necessarily agree.
Yeah, and you know, grubs are good for them, right? We didn't really get a chance to talk about that because of how disastrous this game went, and we didn't expect them to even get one. They managed to take two. So, I mean, if there's ever something to hang your hat on, is that if NiP finds a way to out-rotate AL, to get valuable gold on solo kill, on Nio, then maybe there's something. But it's already a near 2,000 gold deficit in the jungle at 10 minutes here. Leave got a kill. Nice.
Yeah, I mean, yes, you're correct. Leave got a kill. I concur that happened in that exchange, and that could mean something depending on how many more he's able to accumulate over the next 10 or so minutes. Really, at this point, it's the stacks. If this smolder is not burning, if this smolder is not melting through that front line, it becomes infinitely more difficult. And if you thought it was scary to fight into a 2-kill Xin Zhao, 2-kill Misfortune, how about a 4-kill Xin Zhao, 3-kill Misfortune? You don't even get the vision here. Nio is spotted going into the brush, and Tarzan is here.
Yep, they know that this is happening. Here comes Tarzan, 4-0-4. He's got the Sundered Sky too, so you know he's going to sustain a whole lot. He's taking a lot of damage, but here comes the rest of AL. There's Mom over the top. So being a 1-for-1 for right now. Will this fight continue? Niket wants a piece, but here comes the bullet time. Doing enough damage. Niket is so low, he cannot survive. It's a double kill for Flandra. He's now got 3 kills as everybody except for Shanks and Kyle are participating in the kill department.
It's a huge win for AL that continues to push their lead forward. However, it is a shutdown going over to Nio that could theoretically get this Olaf at least kind of back into the game. We do see that Stridebreaker completed as that first item coming in, so at the very least you are getting something on the jungler here, but this is just a doomed play from the start. Tarzan feeling invincible ends up charging into Doingby here, not realizing that, yeah, the Olaf can actually still hurt at this point in the game. He does have his team collapsing down, but it's a little bit too much damage. The pullback coming in is just a little bit, there's not really a lot of ways to outplay that in terms of being the Xin Zhao despite the item advantage. Here, though, this is completely undefendable. I don't know why you continue this chase. There is nothing to gain here. Hope still has ults available, and at this point, NiP are just sacrificing their own lives. Not a play I would recommend making, but at the end of the day, all it does is give Tarzan pressure over this dragon and a little bit more gold in the pocket of AL.
Pretty sure one of our prodiff coaches will teach you to not do that. As NiP are sending everybody in the top side, they are selling out to get as many plates as possible, utilizing these grubs to their full advantage. Meanwhile, Shanks, Kyle will try to help out here. They'll get some progress on this turret.
Yeah, they will be able to at the very least set up, but at least for now, it looks like it is going to be a teleport onto the top side. Flandra could be in danger.
Oh, we're just diving here. All right, Flandra just teleported in to die?
Certainly a questionable decision there from Flandra. Ends up teleporting in, but I guess technically he does save the turret, and with Shanks pushing here on the bottom side, that could be enough in order to get first turret gold over to AL. It doesn't look like it's going to be on this wave. But, you know, maybe that is a play that they consider worth making. I certainly would not. A bit of a blunder there, but we'll see how much it's capitalized on.
I mean, it is going to secure feats, so that's very good in itself. You did give a shutdown over to leave. I mean, like, you know, we talked about how far behind an IP is, but, you know, giving stuff to Smolder is generally inadvisable. So I do wonder if that's actually going to mean anything later. You know, who knows? It could, but again, we're neither here nor there. That is a long ways away right now, K-Man. What's not a long ways away is this Rift Herald, about 1 minute and 10 seconds. I think if AL are able to secure this without too many issues, they will really put the game out of reach.
Yeah, they just need a few more pieces to fall their way. It really just comes down to 1 or 2 fights. Shanks now going to be the one to defend the top tower. He continues to hold strong, and this tower will stay alive on the top side of the map. But looking at objectives, again, 50 seconds on both Herald and on, or about 5 minutes and 50 seconds on the Otacon, as Leave is just going to get chunked out by the bullet time in the mid lane. Hope half level up here, really kind of expressing that dominance, especially with that Bloodthirster completed. But really at this point, it's what play do AL want to make? They're overloading on the bot side right now to try to get Flandra that push. Do they want to keep that going, or do they perhaps want to move to the top side to contest over this Rift Herald? That will be the question.
Well, I would say why not go after the Rift Herald, right? You're just so much stronger right now. Use this early gold lead that you have, this 4,000 gold lead at 14 minutes, which is so hard to overcome early, to just go ahead and win these fights. You know, your Misfortune as a bloodthirster, so even if the bullet time gets interrupted, as long as she's not getting immediately blown up and killed, you're going to be able to sustain pretty nicely through these fights. We're already seeing some heal cut come out. The Executioner's Calling coming through just to, you know, cut out whatever healing that you're going to get on the side of NiP. You know, again, just get those little edges that you can't afford to build this way at this juncture.
Yeah, Leave certainly generating some of those stacks on the Smolder. 163 at this point. Now is Tarzan trying to make sure that those stacks do not matter as he jumps in onto the AD carry. See if this fight wants to continue. Kyle stepping up, but looks like they just want to go for the Rift Herald here. I want to point out a big Cubby talking point that I'm going to steal blatantly here.
Let's hear it.
Redemption completed for Kyle, not for Niket. That is a very important power spike on the current patch. AL should have a lot of combat power here.
Well, NiP want to find a way in. I mean, this Herald is not getting consistently done here, and it looks like it's going to reset again as NiP show up. Leave is half HP, and right now that means solo kill is able to farm up against Flandre, and I mean, that generally is a benefit here for NiP. I mean, you're able to kind of get your jacks generated a little bit more. Leave is able to just ping pong wave with hope and get stacks. We need to start seeing a little bit more action from AL to really make sure that NiP can't find a way back.
Yeah, I agree that it's good to keep your foot on the gas, but it's also important to realize that if this game does stall, that still kind of favors AL with the comp that they have for themselves. And so, really, they're not super forced into doing anything other than punishing NiP's mistakes at the moment. If NiP is going to step up for this Herald, this would be a great time to fight. Teleport coming in. This is it.
The engage is on Nio. He's down to half HP. Another teleport coming in. This one's Flandre. So they expend 2 teleports, do AL. Means that solo kill will have alone time with this turret and should be able to take it with 2 grubs. But the Herald will go to AL.
Yeah, it's the trade that AL were willing to make here. They were very willing to sacrifice that bot lane tier 1 if it meant they could guarantee that success, and it's exactly what ended up happening. I like that deal because you can utilize that Rift Herald to basically make up for the loss. Nice dodge there by Kyle, showcasing high-level recon mechanics. Right now, we're seeing that Rift Herald dropped. They're not going to be waiting. They are utilizing that to equalize right now.
Yeah, trying to extend the play here as AL. The charge is going to come through. NiP do have purchase of the river for right now. Again, just trying to do all they can to get Leave stacked up. He's at almost 200 stacks right now. He's really getting close. He's had a fantastic game when it comes to stacking. He's so good at these stacking champions. And if there's any way NiP want to get back in, he's got to get there. The question is, will they give up the dragon for it?
They absolutely should not. NiP have first track in here, but this is one that I would imagine AL want to contest over. Tarzan healing up a little bit. Kyle a little bit low at the start of this fight, but NiP realized this is such a dangerous spot. Solo kill could be on the flank, but it's going to be spotted out. Dragon is started.
We're going to see Hope get that mid wave in, and here we go. Fight is going to break out. Shanks is prepping that Rift Walk. 7,000 HP on the dragon and dropping, but very, very slowly. Shanks is now on the flank. Redemption going to come out here. Heal them up. They're going to try to chase out Shanks. They're going to headbutt him out. Solo kill really can't find a way, and Mom doesn't do a damn thing. 3,000 HP and getting lower and lower. Where's Nio? He needs to make something happen. Bullet time coming across, and they shut him out! They lock all windows and doors to AL and do not allow a soul near that dragon. Doinby, Niket trying to get away, but Tarzan follows. Knockups, wind becomes lightning. Leave, dies. Doinby dies. Ace for AL.
That's exactly what we were looking for. You don't need to be the one to go in. You don't need to be the one to force plays. NiP will make a mistake, and when they do, you will destroy them. Anyone's legend taking this game into their hands. They lost game 1. They were down in games 2 and 3, but here in game 4, they are asserting their dominance. As we get a replay here, solo kill is completely zoned off. Leave wants to try to ult because it feels like they're engaging on the jacks, but it whiffs everybody, and at this point, there is no fight to be had. Once Shanks gets exhausted, at this point, there is nothing you can do about Tarzan. Shanks even ends up waiting out the exhaust and still rift walking in to do a ton of damage, even with the flank on the back line. There's nothing going on. We're in picture-in-picture.
Yeah, we're still seeing fighting going on, and we're seeing Doinby just get ripped apart by Hope. He's 6-0, he's 7-0, he's not 8-0 because Shanks steals that one. Niket will go down, and they're just being knocked down by Domino's came in, and it came in. This game has really gotten out of hand. It was out of hand early. It's out of hand now. Otacon is up in 2 seconds, and you know, NiP, they're done after this game. Their year is over. They will not be able to make the regional gauntlet.
Yeah,
Doinby
unfortunately, unless they can make the comeback.
Yeah, and Doinby, after taking a couple of years off, is now back. In his first year back, would you say it's been a successful year?
Ooh, that is a very rough conversation to have. I think if you're going off of what their expectations were, especially after winter, I think it's reasonable to say no, that this team wanted to at the very least compete towards top 6, top 5, like be a contender for making the regional qualifiers, even if they weren't able to make it to Worlds, for this to be a Group Nirvana team that sneaks their way into playoffs and watches Niket get torn apart by the bullet time. You know, I think they, I don't think they look at that play as particularly positive, and I think that might encapsulate maybe how they feel right now.
You might be right, K-Man. I mean, I think that Doinby individually has played pretty okay. Smolder is stacked up. He's going to die here, as they just dive him with impunity. I think that Doinby has played pretty okay this year. I think he's had his ups and his downs, but for a guy taking a couple of years off, we've seen a lot of players just look worse than he has. We're seeing another fight break out here. I mean, they're just they're not even throwing things at the wall here, K-Man, and seeing what sticks. It's just they're just going in. You can just see the faces of these NiP players, man. They look downtrodden. Like, Leave is just looking down despondent right now. It doesn't matter how many stacks you have. You know, for him, he's had his issues. He had his issue with that Otacon in the Kaisa game. But he has shown that he is a guy that can carry games. He's so close. He just has to refine a couple of parts of his game. And he could be a big player next year.
Absolutely. And we're talking about, oh, was this year a disappointment for NiP? Let's kind of flip it on the other coin for a second. Almost every single one of these players was discarded by some organization. They were told that you're not the future. You're not the player that we're looking to build around. And they all come together here on NiP around, you know, Doinby, a former world champion. And, you know, they turn into a team that, you know, can take a game off of anyone's legend, that can take a game off of top esports in a best of 5. You're looking at breakouts from players like Leave and Nio, who was excellent in the regular season after, you know, time on Rare Atom and LGD. You have someone like Niket, who was on RNG at the beginning of the year, who was bottom 2, solo kill, who came in as a mid-year replacement. Everyone wrote him off on EDG. I think in the lens of these players all being return candidates, all of them have raised their stock in 2025, and all of them I would expect to have at least something to say about the LPL's future going into 2026.
Yeah, they really gave NiP a lot of juice. Remember that NiP did perform pretty well in Split 1. Obviously, we had that in you know, that format where there was a bunch of best of 5s into playoffs, and you know, NiP had a tough draw. They drew AL first, then they drew top esports. They drew the top 2 teams. They had close series against AL, weren't able to get it done, and then, you know, they were essentially farmed in Split 2, and they were just, everything was so poor for them. But they made the necessary changes in Split 3. They had a great run in Nirvana where we thought they would be maybe the second best team, but also maybe in that 3-4 spot, and they really came through and were just so strong. And, you know, credit to them, hats off to them for how far they've come and, you know, how tough they played this series.
How tough they played every series. I don't think it's just today where this team has shown up.
You're right.
I mean, they beat FPX. They took a game off of top esports, and they really pushed them in that series as well in game number 3, where you could argue they were kind of in the lead in similar ways to what they were in the middle of this series as well. This is a team that has proven that the bones, the pieces of it, the players on it are good enough for this level. It's all really just about that growth and development. We already got so much of it out of these players. You know, I'm excited to see what their futures look like, but fortunately for now, they are down 10k gold to Ninjas in Pajamas. Shanks is just realm warping in. Oh no. Rift walk.
This is the last fight. We see TPs coming into the base. We see a bullet time over the top. It just doesn't matter. It's a triple kill for Tarzan. Anyone's legend They were pushed hard by NiP in this series. A lot of games where AL were fortunate to be knocking on the base turrets, knocking down the Nexus, but Game 4 was not one of them. Wire to wire domination in Game 4. They have earned the right to face off against IG, and they have exiled NiP to an early offseason.
Anyone's Legend come up clutch in the big moment. You wanted their best game of the series. There's your best game of the series. It was slow. It was dominant. You know, at times you could say it was a little bit predictable. I think that's fair to say after the first 5 minutes of the game, but they showed everything that you wanted to see out of them. You know, my panic meter was kind of getting out of control after Game 3. I think they might have swung some things back here.
Yes, they looked like the AL that we saw in Split 2. Again, we've mentioned this before. There are flashes of this team that you still see. It's hard to tell, though, if it's a mirage or not. And that series against IG is going to tell us a whole lot, win or lose, right? Because you need to go and play good games against the best teams in the LPL. This was a team that, you know, we were expecting to maybe win MSI. They went to 5 games against Gen G. They went to 5 games against T1. They just weren't able to get it done. And to see them struggle here has been really frustrating for, you know, being like following this league and seeing them struggle at this point where they really shouldn't, and having hope and putting hope in them, no pun intended. And just seeing them struggle was very frustrating. And, you know, at least in this game, they were able to escape, but there is still so much to clean up, K-Man.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of problems. This team's mid-games are terrible. Genuinely some of the worst in the entire league. They absolutely need to figure that out. IG will rip them apart if they have the same problems going into that next series. However, it is totally possible that the mid-game problems we saw are almost entirely from just this idea of we don't know who we want to play through. We didn't have a clear idea of drafts. Like, there are so many factors that can blend into this. You fix one, maybe you fix a little bit more. They are a team that I truly do believe has the upside to still win the LPL, even from this position, but it's now or never. They didn't show everything here today, but hopefully the next time we see them, they can pull from Game 4 and not so much from Game 1.
And with this series victory, Weibo Gaming and JDG have locked their spots for the regional gauntlet. Where they're going to land in the regional gauntlet, nobody really knows. They are going to have long roads themselves, but that is neither here nor there because they are still alive in the playoffs right now, K-Man. And I'm not quite sure where they're both going to land, but all I know is that matchup between those two is going to be an absolute banger. It's going to be tomorrow's matchup. Weibo Gaming and JDG. You're not going to want to miss that one. If anything, for maybe not amazing gameplay, but for the fact that these teams are so evenly matched.
Hey, let's call back to the final couple days of the regular season that we had here. We got 2 different instances of Weibo versus JDG at the end of the regular season. Both of them were chaotic. Both of them were really fun to watch, and they split one apiece in those 2 series before getting into the play-in stage. So both of these teams definitely with something to prove, and I think there are multiple players here that I'm going to be excited to see. Scout versus Xiaohu. You know, a pretty classic matchup that's kind of gotten turned on its head over the course of the past year. One of them's going to step aside and one of them's going to have to step up. We'll see which is which.
Can't believe you just said you were excited to watch Scout play, but I mean, it is a classic matchup, right? I mean, you know, I keep holding out hope that, you know, Scout will, you know, start playing like Scout again. It's you know, sir, there's no other way to put it, K-Man. I mean, he's playing uncharacteristically poor. JDG needs him to step up if they are going to actually make any headway. Anyone's Legend, a 3-1 victory here. K-Man, who's your MVP for this game?
Ooh, for this game? Us.
It's Tarzan, right?
The viewers.
The viewers like you.
All of us. Yes,
our
the
goats.
viewers like you. The LPL
Because let me
English
tell you,
chat.
that 4th game, after the first 3 games, kind of suffering. Not gonna lie. It was disappointing. Oh my, holy cannoli, bro. Look at this damage chart. It is one of the damage charts of all time. As Shanks... Yeah, go ahead.
I gotta point out, Doingby top damage on the team, on the Karma. The pick worked.
The pick worked.
Success. I think there's, you know, some validity. 30%.
He had 100% KP.
He did.
The pick worked.
The pick worked.
You're onto something, bro. You know what? Maybe that was the pick. Hey, you know, if the early game doesn't go the way it goes, I mean, maybe there's a
well,
oh,
part of the problem in the early game was this play where doing these flashing in to get the tether onto a member of AL that is nowhere close to dying and just instantly dies. His entire team runs it. There is, I mean this with all sincerity, there is no explanation for this play. I truly do not believe you can give me a reason that happened, and I would believe you. I think it must have been some sort of voodoo mind control.
The only thing I could think of is that they thought that they had a man advantage. They knew that Nio was put behind, and they knew that if they weren't able to get him back into the game, that they were just going to lose no matter what.
Yeah.
And I think that if that's their rationale, then I can accept it. But we don't get that sort of context. And that's my favorite part about pro play sometimes, is that you don't always have the context, so you see a couple of things that look a little silly.
Just a little bit. I think you might be right? You're looking at a comp, you're Olaf Karma. You need to get a lead. If you're playing from behind on Olaf, you're running in and dying, and the game is over. There's no way to play it, and so I get this idea that, okay, I've kind of been taken off of, you know, Kilter here. It's a great invade by Tarzan to pick up first blood. I have to pull something back. I have to try to make this play work. But to expend 2 flashes, to send Niket in essentially by himself, and then, you know, to not really have any damage on the Olaf, if that's your strategy to get the gold back on Olaf, I think best case scenario there, you maybe get a kill onto Doingby. You know, it's really tough to imagine a world where Nio is able to salvage it. I think what it comes down to for me is NiP, you know, I don't like to use this term a lot, because again, you explained it best. We don't really know what's going on. We don't know what's going on in the comms, but at least from our perspective, I could see a bit of nerves on this team full of a lot of young players, and just really felt like that kind of overcame them in the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's so tough, right? Because AL, obviously, we've talked about it a lot. They're not playing up to their standard. This is still a good team. This team still has a lot of gravitas toward them, right? With how well they did at internationals. This is still a team that we expect to go to Worlds, right? It's the expectation. No matter what happens, whether they qualify off points, whether they go regional gauntlet, it doesn't matter. Like, this is a team that really should be there and should be representing the LPL. So I can understand why they would be potentially a little intimidated, especially with the way that they had these games in the back pocket. I mean, it happens to league players everywhere, regardless whether you're just playing solo queue or whether you're a pro player. If you have a lead in games and you end up losing, it will tilt you. Like, that is a real thing that happens no matter what.
Absolutely. It is very easy to get tilted, and Tarzan did the tilting in this series. Tarzan was relentless. Even in game 1, their one loss of the series, Tarzan absolutely blasted Nio at level 1 and throughout the early levels. The strategy was clear, and Tarzan was going to eliminate and take away as many resources as possible from ninjas in pajamas, and for the most part, this series, that was incredibly effective.
Yeah, no surprise there, K-Man, and now looking forward, tomorrow's series, Weibo Gaming, JDG. What do you think of that series? Who do you think's going to take it?
I think right now, Weibo just looked really good, and Yanni, you know, there's magic around Weibo once we get to this time of the year.
Dude,
there's something in the air that just permeates their system that allows them to play better. You know, JDG, I think, you know, maybe controversially, are a little bit better than they get credit for. Are they as good as the top 5? No, but are they an okay team that, you know, could take a couple of games? They've already clearly proven that that is the case, but for me, I think Weibo Magic will run rampant, and I think specifically I'm looking at that bot lane to potentially have a big series.
Weibo Magic indeed. Let's take a look at the standings, or at the bracket if we have it. I believe we should have it here, and we do. We see Anyone's Legend defeating NiP 3-1, moving on to face Invictus Gaming. That match will be on Sunday morning, so we're going to get through the rest of round 2 before we really start moving on to some of these later rounds. You can see BLG and Top Esports will be played on Monday. A couple of notes before we depart. We have to give a big shout out To our Elite Coffee supporters, Aaron Soup among Forest, without your pledged financial contributions will help level up the broadcast, give back to the cast and crew who strive to give you an English LPL product every single day. Once again, tomorrow, Weibo Gaming, JDG, Rooted in Grapes will be on the call. That will do it for us here today. For myself, for my co-caster K-Man, for Rare Out of Behind the Glass, and for the entire LPL family, we want to thank you all so much for being here with us today. We hope to see you tomorrow for some more LPL action.